right. You ready?
I'm setting a push to talk. Hold on. Is
Well,
my mic like loud enough and everything?
I turn up your audio on my end, so you're fine.
Okay.
I think it's fine.
You don't have to put push talk on. You can just leave. It's whatever you're doing now is fine. You're a beautiful little creature. You're fine.
Yep, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. So this is the, I want to say 6th. I could look it up, but I'll just change it in post if it's not. Pretty sure 6th.
Yep, should be.
Should be.
Number 6.
And there's not a lot as far as a variety of things we're going to be talking about today, but within each of those things will be, I'm sure, a long conversation that's going to basically break down to Archnemesis, a couple Q&A things, Siege of the Atlas. I got some curveball questions at the end. So let's start with Archnemesis, since that's the thing leaving the first. You know, it's the one going out the door. So Archnemesis League,
so.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be around either, probably. But I guess the most important question is just: are we enjoying the league mechanic? So are you guys enjoying the league mechanic? So not the siege, not the patch, just Archnemesis. Are you enjoying Archnemesis?
I'm so disappointed. I'm just so disappointed. The worst part about it for me, because I just like it. I like doing it, and that's the worst part. I think it's like one of the worst leagues that have been introduced to PoE, but it's such a weird one because GGG just decided, we're just gonna make a good league and make terrible UI, like the worst UI you can come up with, and just make it terrible. So
it's not even just the UI. It is also, I guess, to the initial question: am I enjoying the league mechanic itself? I enjoy parts of it, but it has zero place or flow in the rest of the game. It totally, it breaks up Path of Exile's mapping experience, but not in a positive, like I'm leaving to do something else impactful, like heist or delve kind of feels way. It's just like I have to stop and do a thing now, and you've made every aspect of doing this thing as clunky as possible, and that's where it really kills me. So it's just like not just the UI. With UI is trash, but like the fact that like they don't stack, and there's this weird eye level constriction, and the fact that like you can't do anything with the duplicates, and sometimes you're just hunting one piece forever, and then you go like it just all feels kind of bad, which maybe makes me want to do it more. I don't know.
I mean,
it
for
never
me,
feels worthwhile.
I think what I meant by UI is also the storage space, right?
Yeah, that's so ridiculous.
That's exactly what I meant. It just, if the storage space was, let's say, 2 times as big as we have right now, I think this would have been pretty okay league.
It's hard to. I mean, you fill it up in like a half hour, like it's full, like it's totally full.
Yeah,
and then you're forever if you're doing any of the long form combinations of recipes, which I don't even think are even really worthwhile considering like the time it takes to do them most of the time, or the rippiness of them, which is a whole other thing. I feel like you're always missing 5% of 10 different recipes, and then you're just forever micromanaging things and then actually getting nothing. If you like broke down the time spent, I think I spend fiddling with it and looking for, or like identifying which pieces I'm missing. It's such a ridiculous amount of time compared to actually playing the game. Just because you can run a map so fast.
There actually is potential in the mechanic. Like,
yeah,
the mechanic is not unfun on its own. It's just so many improvements could have been made, but they just didn't do anything.
And I think,
like everything that you mentioned, but also like queuing up the 4 pieces when you first find it would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, like, the most painful part for me about Archnemesis is what you're saying is that I think the concept of Archnemesis is like the next iteration of like build your own scary monster. It's kind of like what Metamorph I think had in mind. And I think it's the best variation of that so far. But it's building off of the framework of so many UI and mechanics that we already have in Path, they're just not using. Like there's so many things in Bestiary's framework that you could effectively just apply to Archnemesis, like the whole recipe breakdown system. You could probably just port that over and just use something like that, or the way that they save recipes. Like there's things that you could like I feel like the framework is in game to make this good, and I think the changes are so minimal, just like doubling the UI size or having it so you could 3-to-1 the pieces, like metamorph pieces, can be done. I mean, you're not going to get everything you want, but at least it's like something that's like, oh, I'll pick up everything now because at least I'll 3-to-1 them, and then like they have a thing, or have it so we could store them somewhere else, or it just seemed like there's so many near misses that were so easy to rectify, and it just is crazy that they didn't do it.
It feels like they just didn't really try, right?
Like, I mean, also it's just like Scourge. It was a one-patch league. They patched. I mean, they technically could patch it again, but I highly doubt they're gonna even touch it. And they patched it. They did one UI change. It's one I don't even use, and it honestly feels like it kind of was strange. Like they had the change was, it showed a drop-down menu. It lets you click on recipes and highlight the ones you did, but it also came with a tangential. They call it basically. They think that's upgrade as far as they're concerned, but everything just glows now in your Archnemesis UI, and it just makes it even more convoluted looking than before almost.
Yeah, I never used that functionality when they did. I never used it, so it was completely worthless. So it's great. I have it pulled up on screen, but now like I look at my Archnemesis and half of it's glowing with silver and gold borders. I don't really know what the fuck is going towards what. So it really just it didn't really help at all. And even if I wanted to do, like, say I wanted to do 4 big recipes, I click on the 4 I want, and then it highlights the only ones I have in combinations that are unknown, and they could double dip into each other, and it really doesn't end up helping me at all.
I think it mostly helps for starting out. Like, we don't know the recipes yet, then I think the update they made is actually a bit helpful.
Well, but it doesn't show you the recipe unless you've done it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You're supposed to discover it still.
But no one's going to discover it through this method. They're just going to look it up.
Yeah. I remember when I first did these recipes, even after doing them a few times, I couldn't fully remember the exact combinations of everything, right? So the UI would have been somewhat helpful then. But
even so, even if... I'm just going to play devil's advocate for you and just say, even if you're correct in this, say I don't remember what rejuvenating is, which is a gargantuan and a vampiric. The time it takes me to click the drop-down, scroll to it, click it, find out what it is, then I have to then click it off.
It's good. I know
I could just type rejuve at the bottom, and it's infinitely faster and more modular. Like, it's really just... it begs the question, who designed this and why and for what, you know? But yeah, I mean... I think it's probably going to just go the way of Scourge. And
another thing about it is that the treants are so broken, like so strong, that there's almost no point doing the high tier recipes when you can just make the treant hard for like 3 basic pieces and use that instead, you know?
Yeah, so the one, just to clarify for those who don't know which one treant is, all treant does is it spawns a bunch of shit that copy pastes things that come after it, basically. But it's like quantity and mob density that just gets you more of the one thing you want. So, for example, if
the treant hot says, sorry to interrupt, but it says that gives you a random reward type.
Yeah.
Right. But it turns out, which is unexpected, at least for me when I first did it, it's actually one of the reward types that you have on your current Archnemesis encounter.
Correct. Yeah.
So you can like guide it really.
Well, it does say randomly chosen reward type. So I believe it's specifically one that you choose after the fact.
I expected it to be like anything that exists in total, you know, not just the ones that you currently have.
You could probably in the settings toggle on German subtitles, and it might be able to help. But yeah, but the whole point of treant is basically if you lead with it and then follow with anything, all the subsequent treants that spawn will drop multiples of that everything you follow with.
Yeah, and there's like 10 of the treants. So
yeah,
it's just like it gives 10 rewards basically.
It's a pinata. So you put things like scarabs on, you put things like even base currency or uniques in it. It showers it in that whatever you want. And thankfully, it's used from 3 base components that are. It's hard to say the rarity of these things because they're based off of a convoluted system being tied to enemy mods that really can't be pinpointed very well. So but the things spawn quite commonly, the 3 components. So you tend to get treants. You could probably make one every couple of maps, like without much issue, I would say.
Yeah, which is why it's so good, right?
Mm-hmm. It just feels, you know,
treant run every couple of maps.
It feels kind of bad that like all the big ones.
Like Kitava,
or Innocence is ridiculous. Yeah, it involves Kitava or the Solaris Lunaris touched, and then that's the thing. I mean, it just kind of gets to one of my next questions: is like, what is your favorite / most used recipe combo? And for me, the one I did a lot of the Shikari recipe thing early on, which they actually nerfed day 2, which they didn't mention it, but it was like unanimously accepted that it was heavily nerfed either day 2 or day 3. And the quality, it gave you a bunch of uniques, mostly tier 2 and like almost guaranteed a couple tier 1 uniques. And they nerfed it to where it rarely gives you a tier 1, but consistently gives you like tier 2 through 3 uniques. So it's fine. It gets slow. You can get, waylaid on certain pieces and it'll take forever to do. But the one I do consistently now is Treant Horde Temporal Bubble, which gives you a bunch of expedition and heist blueprints. That's the one I don't know if it's the best one, but it's the stuff I want to do, so it feels the best to do. And it'll give me, like, it's quite common to get 20, 30, 40 even expedition rerolls off of like a full set of that. And that feels
That's actually
nice.
my favorite part about the mechanic is that you can target whatever you want pretty nicely. That's that's why the mechanic is so nice as a base mechanic. It's just, all the flaws that we just mentioned.
To be fair, it does feel like Scarabs with extra steps. If like that's, of the mechanics that target mechanics, this is the clunkiest of that. Like if we're just breaking down the base value of what's a mechanic that targets other mechanics that I want to do. This does that, but it does that with so many little bells and whistles that kind of makes it awkward, I guess.
I mean, I still think that all those flaws that we mentioned already are still fixed by just increasing inventory by 150, because we would just have more choice and more leeway on like really the RNG aspects of the mechanic, like that you just cannot drop, let's say, frenzied, or cannot drop toxic or something like that you are bottlenecked by one piece. So I think that's my biggest gripe and biggest disappointment about it. It's just such an easy fix for the mechanic itself.
Yep.
That it's kind of enjoyable, as you said, but it's just baffling. It's just baffling.
Yeah.
But yeah, to say my favorite one, same as you, Lighty, actually. I've done a lot of Shikari at the start of the league when I needed some random uniques for the builds that I'm gonna play.
Yep.
And after that, I'm just gone for Temporal Bubble or just mirror image, the same as most people in Trade League do, which is mirror image Trend Horde into some random pieces, like, let's say, Rejuvenating.
Yeah, Rejuve's pretty nice.
Opulent.
There's a lot of budget ones that have that re-rolling, choosing the rarest, that are really easy to do as following. And mirror image is the keystone. It just gives you a ton of Scarabs.
Also right now, after doing both Temporal Bubble and the Shikari, I'm mostly focusing on Arakali right now. Because it gives you a lot of stack decks.
It's the diff card one.
Yeah, it's a diff card one. So it gives you stack decks, give you diff card Scarabs, and I need those for my end game goals. So it's pretty nice. Like you can get around, let's say, 80 to 130 stack decks per proper recipe.
Yep.
Depending on the shrines as well, because you can, let's say, use the duplicate currency shrines to duplicate your stack decks. So
that's neat.
Yeah, that's pretty okay. I like it.
Yeah, there's a couple of the we'll get to Siege in a little bit. There's a couple of the new Eldritch altars that do have, I'm not sure if it was intended or not with this mechanic. I feel like it almost wasn't, because it kind of seems inconsistent with the rest of the wording, but they affect things like globally within the map. Normally everything from those altars only affect things inside, killing those Eldritch mobs that they spawn in subsequent ones. But things like global, like any of the uniques drop at the map, they have a chance to be doubled, or currency. Those are just for the map. Once those are active, that's just on now. So if you do things like Archnemesis or do any other mechanic that drops any currency uniques, they also are subjected to that duplication. So it can get you some nice juicy things. Same with Shikari. Like, it's only, you tend to do probably the same thing with Arakali. You'd run your maps until you hit one or two of that altar buff, and then you would then put your Shikari or Arakali in, so you can get the most bang for your buck. But duplicating stack decks is a lot better than duplicating uniques. So
true. It's really a big difference, to be honest, because between 80 and 130 per recipe, it's almost twice as much, and just waiting for one little thing.
For sure. What do you think is, this is kind of a hard one to say because most of us play solo self-found exclusively to a degree, but what do you think is the best recipe combo? And I feel like it's probably going to just be like Treant mirror image, but what do you think is the strongest one?
It depends on the state of the league and your progression too, right?
Yeah. Hard question to answer. But like bang for your buck, it's kind of hard to beat. I feel like it's hard to beat that one.
Yeah, I think mirror image is the easiest one to make, and it's just a lot of rewards.
Yep.
Or temporal bubble is also okay. Like I think those two recipes that we've been using is also fun.
Yeah.
Are pretty good in trading as well.
And I don't know how the value of scarabs developed this league since they dropped so much now. They might be kind of worthless currency-wise.
I've heard that a lot of them did drop, but most of the ones that we assume would retain value have, even things like Expedition, because the rate in which they're dropping is kind of being evened out by the rate in which everyone's buying them up in mass. So I think it's one of those things where it just kind of the desire goes up with the quantity introduced. Because people
one
like
that I've been using
I've
played the BPL private league 2 weeks ago. It was just like a 4-day event, so it was like basically like a league start simulation again. And the map reward Archnemesis, like Soul Eater and Soul Conduit, those have been really valuable.
Yep.
I've been doing like Soul Eater into Train Horde, and then other sources of lucky rerolls, and you get multiple like Conqueror and Elder Guardian maps, which is really important for early bossing.
Yeah,
so that one was pretty good.
I think map rewards are really strong early on. Like obviously we're talking about like week 2, week 3, what we are doing right now, but
yeah,
I would say I agree with Manni. It's like really solid if you want additional Conqueror maps, as he said, or also if you want to just get maps that you want because they respect their favorite system, right? So you're just dropping couple favorite maps, right?
Sextants too.
Yep.
And unmakings. I think they're also considered map currency.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting.
And sextants are honestly, to me, has been the scarcest of the map currency by far, because it's a combination of unmakings you could just get from Kirac, horizons you'll get fragment-wise from Harbinger, but sextants just has to drop sextants, and then you kind of blow through them quite quickly since it's 4 per 4 maps, I guess, if you have the point on the tree. So I've had the hardest time sustaining sextants over anything else by far.
They added some really cool new sextants too that combo up really nicely.
And I found like none of them. Of the hundreds I've done,
rare,
they're so some of them like
so
some of them are incredibly rare and incredibly like strange. Like one of the examples for the sextants that they introduced now is like harvest mobs have increased quantity, and it's a specific color of harvest mob. Like it's only blue mobs or something, which I think are cool if you were, I guess, trying to farm out like a specific boss, but it seems so random, like some of the ones that are the same rarity as like all, the boss drops like 3 synthesis maps. Like it's on the same rarity tier as having only blue harvest mobs, which is kind of bizarre.
Yeah, it's weird how rare some of them are since they're not really that strong.
Yeah. I mean,
like
some
the
of
one you mentioned about, like I'd rather have the guaranteed sacred growth.
Oh yeah, that one's much more common. Also,
the one you mentioned, I think, says one of the 2 plots is always blue, or there's one for purple and yellow as well. And those are far less common, even though they seem less useful.
Yeah, it also increases I think it increases the harvest mob's life by like 50% also. As if those mobs needed a buff. Probably the rippiest mob set in the game still. It's just random harvest mobs. So we mentioned briefly that like this was another, like Scourge, we talked about all the things we'd like to see in the league if it was to be adapted into the core game. And just like Scourge, this was another kind of like patch once and then just abandoned as far as updating the league has gone. This works, I think it's not a big deal when the league's introduced with an expansion. But if it's introduced with like just as a standalone mechanic, I mean, can you imagine hypothetically Archnemesis was released in the upcoming league and there was no X-Pack and nothing was new except for that? Like it would I feel like much more catastrophic because there's nothing new.
Sure.
So this has been the second league in a row where there's been a league with effectively, I mean, Scourge had new currency in a way, but that's not even in the core game anymore. But it had like nothing really new introduced as far as bases or anything gets retained. If there's a third league in a row now that has nothing newly implemented into it, and it's just a patch once and abandoned league, how does that make you feel? Like, to me, it's a little like this is like kind of I mean, it's only twice, so it's hard to say it's a pattern, but it has me slightly on edge that like it's gonna keep happening effectively until Kappa Path 2 Horizon.
We'll see. I think they will introduce like the mods that Monster have in Archnemesis to the main game. So I think the League not gonna go core, but the elements that they developed for the League itself gonna be introduced to
Are
the
you telling
base
me I'm
game,
gonna have harvest monsters that have Trickster on them?
Oh man,
probably.
Are you
Never know.
evil?
There are. What has been the most? It's a question for later on because I wanted to talk about pushing to level 100 in the game and the current state of that. But of the Archnemesis mods, which of these do you think is the spookiest of the scary things?
Trickster by far. Like obviously we talking about like not the hardest like Aracali and stuff like that. But I think Trickster is the worst thing that they introduced in this game. It's so scary.
Can you describe what it does?
So what it does, it starts running around at freaking Formula 1 speed away from you, and you cannot hit it. And yeah.
Yeah,
I ever run the unique strand map, the Waka Wari Tairu,
Yep.
whatever?
It's just that boss.
It's exactly the same behavior.
It's that boss.
Exactly the same thing.
It flicker strikes randomly to nothing, and then it just has like built-in damage avoidance. It's
proximity shield, and it runs away. Right?
It was a funny combination. If you put that with temp bubble and mirror image, it creates 6 of them, and you don't know which one is the right one, and they're all temp flipping around with all proc shields on. It's
and you can put it on the cage base monster because base monster also affects the Harmful monster, and so yeah, that's nightmare fuel.
Do you know what I found actually? So there's a lot of boogeymen rares that people have discussed as far as Archnemesis, and I would say the most common ones are the cage and the Katava Herald, and maybe the Revenant, the spider from Act 4. But there's actually a dog, one of the Calm's dogs that burrows underground that I've had a couple times. And those things, if you put them with the right combination of mobs, like Trickster and then the hasted one, it just stays underground for like 30 seconds at a time, which I found interesting. It just fucking disappears.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like the animation in which it pops up and goes back down is somehow subverted, and it just is constantly tunneling underground, untargetable, which is a fun one. And if it also just scales off of things like Soul Eater, so if you somehow got it to max, 1,000 Soul Eater stacks, it would just be going absolute apeshit underground, never to be seen again.
The Soul Eaters can be really scary, actually, when you...
It definitely can get out of control quite quickly.
Yeah, because the 4th Archnemesis you do, they have like a crazy amount of life and base damage, right?
Yep.
They're like really tanky. The Soul Eaters can be kind of scary. Also, I'm sure you guys have done lots of Brine King touch recipes for your run, right?
Yep.
Where you combine... One of them is called Ice Prison, which just locks you in an ice prison in a circle of ice, and you can't flame dash over it for some reason.
It's because
skills don't work.
It's when in proximity it deactivates movement skills, but it has the same entity detection as a frostwall, which means you could phase through it.
Yeah,
so if you just have phasing, you just walk right through, and it's not a big deal. But if you don't have phasing, you're just trapped in a hellhole where you can't target or move.
I died multiple times to it early on in the league when I was relying on a phasing flask, and it eventually ran out when the encounter took like a minute.
Well,
you also combine it
Entangler or whatever that one, the Droughtbringer, sorry. Yeah. That eats your flasks.
Yeah, yeah, that too.
Yeah, the Brightening is heralding minions.
Heralding minions too.
Yeah, Storm Strider, I think.
Yep.
So you get everything on top of you, and then you're locked in the ice prison and you die. Very cool.
Intelligent design.
Well, you just press phasing and you're fine, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much phasing or bust for that one.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that have been really important. I mean, as the leagues, this is quite tangential, but as the leagues progress and after the introduction to just purity of elements and determination, there's very rarely now that I play a build that isn't running full element immunity and super high armor, I think, and also cap spell suppression. Those are like 3 things now that I feel like are almost prerequisites on any of my builds I play, because it is just besides just being slapped to death by a monkey hitting me for 40k fizz, it's just like, so there's nothing more frustrating now being just constantly status affected by 1,000 things, and then just being one shot by a mechanic I didn't see. And I think having ailment immunity has been my saving grace now, just for my sanity, more than anything, as the game has progressed.
Yeah, pretty much same here. I think most of my builds were ailment immune. Yeah, my Deadeye, my Berserker. It's also immune, yeah. So I mean, the thing is, it's been like that for, let's say, 2 years already. People didn't really invest into it before. It was more like a hardcore thing, or like if you're pushing level 100 thing. But right now, it's pretty much mandatory with how much damage you take in PoE.
Yeah,
I would say.
It definitely feels a lot better to. I mean, you go first, man.
I don't feel like Elmen is that strong anymore since they also added these Pantheons to give you a ton of reduction for it. I guess so you could count that as Elmen immune too. If you become freeze immune from your Pantheon and have like 60% shock reduction from it.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't feel like I'm shoehorned into pure elements at all. Like there's plenty other ways to deal with ailments. They gave us like these, I think it's a glove craft for reduced chill and shock effect as well. There's a couple other options.
Yeah,
like, overall I feel like the state of the game is amazing in that regard, you know, being able to build defenses and mitigation to ailments of all kinds in multiple ways.
I do wish there was more mitigation for ailments, or they're not even classified as ailments, but debuffs that are currently unblockable.
Oh, you mean like action speed and move speed slows mostly?
So we could. I had later in the segment, but basically it was a question which was what mechanics have killed you the most, and I had a subcategory that listed a few things, and of those things, it is things such as unknown delirium slow, action speed slows from a variety of things, and then I think the most prevalent thing in the entire game at the moment, in my experience, is grasping vines. I mean, it's. I feel like it's truly everywhere, and I can't run a map without being hit by grasping vines multiple times.
About it. It feels so different this league. Is it just me?
I think
they definitely changed something. Yes.
The way that it stacks is quite unfortunate, which is when it hits 10 stacks. First off, the 10 stacks are independent per enemy, so you can have multiple enemies applying their own individual set of 10 stacks on you, which is fascinating. Also, it's a very rare mechanic that if you do drop it off you, you can be back within 10 stacks instantly. There's no like buffer of time in which you're immune to it. So it's just if it's in a map in a variety of ways, it's just basically forever on you. And there's not much you could do to avoid it because nothing really makes it fall off super quick. And then it's also double unfortunate if you're playing any build using Whispering Step, because it's going to be eating your movement skill basically by doing that. So you just have to Whirling Blades away if you can even run that. So it's just like a combination of terrible feelings. All it would take in the game is just put a mastery on tree that says immune to grasping vines, and it would just, just like anything else. I mean, we have ones for impale, we have ones for maim, hinder. Yeah. If they just add one that just says grasping vines, or even just says you cannot be action speed reduced, or anything, it would just be fine.
I think it's more prevalent now because there's an alta mod that makes monsters put vines on you, I think, right?
Yes. Well, there's one from there, and it's also, I feel like, just been added to the base, I think, of a lot of things as well. Like, I feel like it's showing up way more frequently, despite, even with the altars.
Or I don't think it's been changed that much, like the quantity of monsters having it. It just, I think what it boils down to, I think it's the change with the patch itself. Because before, I think you got slowed, like, crawling speed when you got the 10 stacks. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, that you can stack it up so fast. But I think right now, when you just get one stack, you're so slow already. I think that might be the change that they implemented. And that's obviously me just speculating, but that's how it feels. You just touch a monster with it, and you're just not moving at all.
You're just
compared to what it was before. Yeah.
It feels shit. Long story short.
Pretty much.
It does not spark joy. It only makes me sad. I think that's
like literally the worst feeling thing about PoE right now is the vines.
Well,
it's just so bad.
It's just as the entire game has effectively been developed around the concept of if you stand still for 2 seconds, you're going to die in most every scenario. And it's just something that makes you slow as shit. So it feels bad.
The only way to counter it is pretty much using your flame dash charge or like dash charge, I think.
That's the only way. Whirling Blades.
Such bad cooler nowadays.
Yeah, so far away.
Exactly. And on top of that, they introduced the mod that reduces the cooldowns, your cooldowns as a map mod,
that
right?
might be a big factor that it feels so bad, because you run these maps frequently that have, 40% reduced cooldown recovery on everything?
Yeah.
When you have one of those maps, it's really hard to get rid of vines.
I didn't even have that on my. Well, maybe I did, but I deleted my notes by accident. But it was of the things that was most upsetting is all these map mods they added. None of them were like fun hard. They're all just make me sad hard, which is things like
they're like countering more things. Right?
Auras don't work. My CDRs are sad, and then they make it so the enemies have a 50% ES bubble. Like, these aren't things that make the game challenging. These aren't things that make the game...
the worst one, the Consecrated Ground.
Oh, the Conquering one is also terrible. Yeah. The one that annoys me the most is the Aura one, because that's the one I think that breaks the most builds. I just don't like the concept. I don't like the concept of them introducing... Because all they're making you do is they're just making you hemorrhage your currency to be able to play the game, which I feel like... I have never mind them adding difficulty through something that I could... conquer, fight, or like if it's like introduces 2 nemesis or 2 invasion bosses, like if that was a map mod, to me that's fine because they're rippy, and then there's like a risk reward situation. Maybe they have some other mods that can avoid them. Like there's a choice to be made there on my part as the player, whether I want to interact with this mechanic or do I want to like try to avoid it, and it's still gonna add a level of inherent danger. But just having it so half the auras I'm running don't work and my build gets gimped, like. That doesn't really feel good. It doesn't feel challenging. That just makes me now have to chaos over this map again, and it doesn't really. It just feels terrible. Yeah. Like it just seems bad.
Literally, the worst part about this mod is that we are in the meta that everyone uses so many auras and aura reservation. So it just the worst mod it can be added right now. So you just have to chaos it or I don't know, deal with it somehow.
Yeah, if you're playing a Determination Defiance banner build, there's probably nothing that. No other map mod that reduces your EHP by so much.
Or if you res cap through a purity, you're no longer res capped, and you just can't do it.
It's kind of like a weakness in that regard. But there's also what really annoyed me on my Tornado Shot character that I've played recently is that I'm like barely capped accuracy wise thanks to a level 20 precision. Yeah. And when I have that mod, I suddenly have like 85% chance to hit, and I
was just about to mention that exactly the same thing. Like you just have to swap jewels or like do something. I don't know. It's really bad.
Anything that makes it so you're not playing the game to me inherently feels bad. If that's their idea of difficulty, is now making it so I have to do anything but play path. Because I think that as a general like concept of the game, there's a lot of things that, and I think it's a very large gripe amongst players. There's so much in path that stops you from playing path, and to me this was one more thing that prevents you. It's like just another 10 seconds out of your experience that you have to now not be playing path, that you're now fiddling with the map. Like that feels kind of bad. Like the time in which between mapping.
I don't mind those new mods at all, honestly.
Yeah,
I just think some of them are like. Some of them are a bit overpowered, of course, like the reduced aura effect. And the one that I think is really bullshit is the Consecrated Ground, because I feel like there shouldn't be any healing for monsters in the game ever. Same for the Maven heal, but in general, I like that they added more map mods that punish different kinds of builds, because before we had like a few of them like the no regen or the reflect ones.
Yep.
And then some builds just, my build is reflect proof, I'm playing chaos damage, and they ignored those mods. But now there's like some build breaking map mods for pretty much every build out there. There's some curse reduction, cooldown speed, the aura effect that we mentioned for like builds that rely on auras.
I think it's just a design philosophy as far as what do you want the game to be? Do you want the game to be a constant tug of war of decision making in every aspect of the game? Like every single map you run, you have to now like put on your spectacles and now take a look at what's happening.
Yeah,
or do you want to just be able to like, I've already done the legwork to get the currency and get the map. Like I put the time in to get these things and now I can enjoy them. Or is now enjoying them also have a cost that I have to pay attention to? So I think it just breaks down to that. So I'm not sure if you guys have played games like Last Epic, for example, but in that one, the time between doing what is the equivalent of mapping is about 10 seconds. You collect your loot, you vendor, you maybe make an upgrade on your gear, and then you're right back into the action. And I think that's a feeling that is no longer exist in Path unless you effectively batch roll all of your maps and prepare all of your scarabs and things ahead of time, which they have implemented in the way of you could stack scarabs in your map device. And to be fair, I do find myself now rolling my maps effectively in sets of 10 because I'll put 4 scarabs in I'll have like my 10 of each scarabs. I got my 4 scarabs in. I'll roll 10 maps, and then it's like I'll do 10 maps, and then I can take a break, and that's fine.
Only sections would last like 5 or 10.
Yeah, so I think that's the kind of the next point is they have to, if they have to like pick a number, I think also where they want it to be, because it just becomes, again, these levels of like minor inconvenience don't seem like a big deal one at a time. But when you realize that almost a prerequisite of fully sustaining in the end game is stacking a lot of these things, like it's not that you can't sustain your favorite map by just alking and going, but it's quite difficult without a certain atlas setup and without all the bells and whistles. And it's just one more to me, like I'm going down a highway, and this highway now has 30 fucking speed bumps in it before I get to my destination, you know? And I just would like as little speed bumps as possible and just allowed to enjoy my time mapping. So for me, that's why this kind of design philosophy gets a little strange, because it's just one more thing preventing me from actually playing the game. But again, that's where you take a step back and you say, all right, what is playing path? And it gets kind of philosophical. It's like, is this all playing path? I'm in the game. The game is launched. I'm running the software, so I'm playing path. But what do I want to do when playing? Like, what constitutes playing and what constitutes preparation? And it all kind of ties together, because you can even zoom out even further and be like, wow, well, making my character was a form of preparation for mapping. So even that's like part of the preparation. You just don't view it as such. So it's like, does my game start at level 90 and all my maps are rolled and I don't have to worry? Or is like the second I make my character, I'm now playing the game and it's all part of it? Or is it just like a means to an end? So it gets like kind of crazy.
I mean, there's so much variety in PoE though. Like if you don't like choosing up maps like you've been talking about, like preparing, you can just run maps with low investment as well. You can just put them in. You don't even have to arc them nowadays. Like, it's not like you need to do all those steps, right? You can play the game in like many different ways now.
Yep.
Just to how you like it.
Yeah, to respond to you, Lighty, I think you might be over-exaggerating the severity of, let's say, the problem, quote-unquote. I think just the structuring of PoE itself, that you want to build a character that wants to deal with everything that is getting thrown at it. I think that's the main like driving force for GGG to make those changes. So they trying to push people to make the good characters that can deal with everything. Maybe not with, like, let's say one mod that is a big outlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's not that big of a deal that we have so many those speed bumps that you're saying, but it is definitely annoying if your character is not up to par. But I think overall it's just knocking down those outliers and just whack-a-mole those terrible things. Like, I would say the aura effect mod, I think it shouldn't be in the game, because it breaks everything pretty much in most builds.
Yeah, it just needs to be nerfed, I think. It should say like 30% reduced and it'd be fine.
Exactly. But yeah, I think all those mods that they added are mostly fine, and you can deal with it with the tools that we are given. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of PoE players that, in my opinion, say, yeah, the game is too hard, and last epoch maybe it's easy and you have no problems like rolling your maps, rolling your sextants, etc. But it detracts from like complexity, I think, and I think the complexity is still the biggest strength of PoE.
I do think I agree with you there, but I do feel like there's a fine line between complexity and convolution, and it's often one that they maybe don't appreciate the perspective of those who don't have the same amount of time as we do, because a lot of these problems and a lot of these things are solved with the amount of time we could throw at the game. And that's where it gets a little muddy, is that those who don't have the same amount of time, these speed bumps aren't just speed bumps, they're like mountains at a time. So sometimes these things kind of add up a lot more for those the less fortunate. I would say the vast majority. So like when I refer to like the casual path player, it has nothing to do with skill level. It's just the amount of time they can play, because you could have the best guy in the world be playing, but he only has an hour a day to play, and it kind of gets really frustrating for maybe someone like that when they only have an hour to play and they're spending 20 minutes of that hour preparing their maps to run for the next couple of days. Like, that could be a thing that could be frustrating. So it definitely, complexity is something to keep in mind, and it is the core of like ideology of path is complexity, and like you're saying, in a way, perfecting your character to meet all the challenges and like watch them evolve and grow. But in a 3-month time frame, if you can only play like a little bit each day, that's like a narrow window now to pull it off, kind of.
Yeah, that's kind of true, to be honest. I'm obviously talking from the standpoint of a person that has quite a bit of time and obviously the knowledge through the experience I had throughout the years playing with WoW. But yeah, I do agree that maybe for the players that are a bit more
The average
new to
Joe.
the game, or the average Joe, as you're saying, might be a bit too much. But yet again, like you mostly have the tools to
fuck
to
them.
fight.
They suck.
Yeah, you know what? Get
just,
good.
Just get it good.
Get good.
Just go play Elden Ring.
True.
Shit. Yeah, it's like one of those endless conversations. As far as like, it really boils. I mean, it's the ideology is the thing they're basing off of. What do they want the game to be, and in what direction are they going to take it? Like, who are you designing this for? Like, what is your end game thought process on like the storyboard of Path of Exile history? It's a we grind gears. Right? Grinding gear games wants to make a game where you grind for gear, and when you make your character as cool as possible to conquer all the challenges. So it makes sense that there'll be more challenges that might be leaving a bad taste in our mouths in the beginning of their implementation. Who knows?
I totally agree with you, but you know the extra map mods are really not gonna be a big factor for all of that. What you just mentioned. I like the fact that we have new map mods, and it brings more variety to endgame, right? Like sometimes you have this map where now we have less cooldown recovery in this fiat fight or in this daily map, and it's interesting how to deal with that. I think.
Yeah,
I don't mind it at all. I like having more variety in those map mods.
I definitely rather them add things that I dislike than add nothing. If we're implementing things, as long as they have the wisdom to then realize that this thing wasn't good that we added, which sometimes they don't have. So if, for example, they add something like grasping vines is maybe more prevalent or stronger, I don't mind that as much if it exists for a league, as long as the next league they're like, got it, grasping vines is AIDS, we're going to tone it down. But they don't always do that second part, and that's where it feels real fucking bad. So I think it's fine to implement new things that make the game feel a little shit, because the worst case scenario is you just have to deal with it, and the best case scenario is it maybe gives you a more a more zen-like perspective on the things you do enjoy. Where it's like, wow, grasping vines really sucks, and now I'm using calamus roots, and that's kind of fun that this is happening. So, that might be a thing too. But as long as they identify, like, all right, this feels really fucking bad. I mean, they've done it historically. Like, for example, in the implementation of the Bloodlines League, there was a couple mods that were removed from the game effectively. So things like just flat damage thorns, like that left at the time. Things like Phylacteral Link, that left at the time. Things like Necrovigil, that left at the time. They realized, all right, these were miserable. We're going to remove these. As long as they do the same thing, then we're fine.
It took them a long time, though, to identify and remove those, I think, from his history.
Yes.
So I'm really not very hopeful, let's put it that way, that they're going to do something Vine. So we probably going to get another Vine League next league.
Well, here comes break out the Juggernaut or something. I don't know. At this point, it feels less like let me run away to stop grasping vines and more like I'm just going to play a range build that eventually by the time the enemy reaches me, they'll just fall off anyway. Just go around. Why don't we do a couple Q&A questions? Because that seems like a good idea. Let me find some real good ones. A lot of these are things that we've already answered, I think. I guess this is a pretty good blanket one that's going to spark a whole litany of questions. So we'll just do this one question because we're going to be fighting in the streets after this one. What do you think deserves to be nerfed next league in regards to builds in the game? Builds or items?
I mean, I kind of hate it, but probably defenses like Determination mostly, like armor in general, and spell suppression, they probably should be nerfed to enable like other options, but they're so comfy to play with. Yeah. Like I don't want to miss them.
That's the thing, like, it's okay to nerf them if they were to also not add new content predicated on the fact that we had last league's defenses. Because if they were to add new content and it's based off of how tanky we were last league and they nerf all our defenses this league, it'll feel real bad when you get just one shot without insane investment. What about items? Any items you think deserve to be nerfed?
I really think that the new amulet from not Ether, that as well maybe, but the one from Serum Exile, Omni, Crystallized Omniscience, I think that item kind of kills build diversity right now. So I think it's just
can't wait to fight.
Too strong.
No, I disagree wholeheartedly.
I know that you're gonna disagree because we had that conversation before.
We did,
but yeah, but the thing is, obviously, I'm talking mostly about the end game builds, the builds that wanna blast like Beyond maps or Delirium maps or like T16s, and usually you have a couple of choices, and 80% of the time at the moment, the choice is Omniscience, which is what I mean by killing the build diversity at the very high echelons of the game.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And this is where
very sure.
Here's where I disagree. So, if to say that something like Omni destroys build diversity is a very like myopic view of it, and I'll tell you why. Because if I look on PoE Ninja, does it say half the people are playing Omniscience? 100%. So you may think that at base level, this is killing build diversity. But if you look into what builds and what skills are being used with Omniscience, it is skills that were not previously being used at all. So examples of that include people playing things like Cleave or Sweep or Galvanic Arrow or Ground Slam using Omniscience because they now have the damage and defenses for these builds to exist. Is it being abused by these builds? Absolutely not. It's being abused by things like Lightning Strike and Tornado Shot. But if those builds have to be too strong for any other skills to be now viable, I think that's basically okay. And that, in a way, is increasing build diversity. There's a more wide variety of skills.
Weird logic.
It's not weird logic.
Just buff the bad skills, then.
Just buff the bad skills.
Well, we've been asking them to buff the bad skills for about 8 years, and they haven't done it. However, this is the first time that all these bad skills are now usable. So there's a way more large variety of attack skills being used right now than there ever was before because of Omniscience. Now, is that for the wrong reason that they're being used? 100%. But the fact of the matter is, if they nerf Omniscience from 10 to 20, these builds probably won't ever be used again, and it's going to drop the build diversity. It's just one layer deeper, but the fact of the matter is there's a larger diversity of builds. You have to not break it down by classification of item use, break it down by classification of skill used. And it's so much larger. I mean, it's very strange in Path right now as far as build diversity, because if you look up Cyclone, 70% of Cyclone builds aren't even attacking with Cyclone. They're just using it to trigger something. The vast majority of builds that are doing any sort of Ellie hit are using Omni. Any sort of caster that does elemental damage is using the new triple damage staff. So it's like, I mean, if you're breaking it down by just what is the most common item being used, and these builds are now referred to as that item build. If I said, "Oh, what are you playing?" "Oh, I'm playing Omni," and then look at my build and I'm playing fucking Staff Ice Crash, they'll be like, "Well, that's not the Omni I thought you're playing," and that's kind of the whole point. You're doing something that is diverse, you're doing something different, and I mean, that's to me is like super cool.
The problem for me right now is maybe saying build diversity is diminished by Omni is the wrong thing to say. Mostly what I meant is every single fucking build, doesn't matter the skill, because usually what PoE boils down to is like you want to click the button and deliver the instant damage to blood the screen, right? You have the flavors of the colors. So the skills are kind of secondary, but the main thing is also referring to what we talked about before, about the character strength and character development. Literally, every single character that uses Omniscience looks exactly the same. Uses exactly the same gear, exactly the same item.
It is the default choice 90% of the times, and you are correct there.
That's really a big problem.
So it's a hard thing to just fix, because I think it's one of those things where if they make the 10 on Omni into a 20, the build probably doesn't work for the vast majority of people, because then the prerequisite to get to the same levels is so high that it'll be so inaccessible for everybody. If they make to 10 to a 15, is it okay? Probably. That might be the choice to make. Are they going to do something ridiculous and make the 10 into a 30? I mean, possibly. But like, it's just going to matter what they make that number into. How much stat do I have to invest to get Omniscience? Like, it is kind of designed in a way, beautifully terrible because of exactly what you're saying. They made an item so good that covers so many bases, despite it, like, it reminds me of Mage Blood, because it does a very boring thing. Like, all Omni does is it gives you pen, it gives you the requirements to wear gear, and it gives you res. And 2 of those 3 things are fucking useless after a very quick point. Like, if I have 100 res, I'm good, like, as far as being overcapped. I'm good for the game. I'm LE capped forever. So any res past that, totally wasted. If I have the stat requirements to put on my gear, then any amount past that is totally wasted. So the only thing that scales semi-infinitely is the penetration. So it's a really weird item where its investment scaling is so unbalanced that 66% of what it gives you ends up being worthless, but still it's the best choice in the game.
I think you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. I think...
No, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong.
Okay, all right. So what I mean is it's not really useless. It just... it actually gives you those things. It's not... So you don't have to invest in different places, so it's the opportunity cost. It's so easy to get those 2 things, which are the 2 baseline things that every character needs to have, which is stats and the res. And you just fix it. And on top of that, when fixing those 2 things, pretty much for free, you're building damage on top of that. Mm-hmm. And so it just... This item shouldn't be in the game. I'll say that. It shouldn't be implemented at all. It's fun. It's strong. It deals with all the issues that all the builds have. Shouldn't be in a game. I
think
it's a great item. I think it should totally be a viable way to build. It was very fun to make an Omni build at first. You know, it's a different way to make gear. Like, you need different kinds of items, right? You're looking for different mods on your items, and it's slightly different nodes on your tree. I like the concept of the build. They're just too strong that normal ways of scaling elemental builds just can't compete anymore, obviously, right? I feel like if they just a numerical nerf they need to do about the pen. Like, if they half or like give half the penetration they give, so maybe even less, but keep the res and the attribute requirements the same. So you build them the same way, they just deal less damage, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't see how it's hard to fix the item.
Well, I don't see how it's hard to fix Archnemesis, but here we are. So I don't think that's hard to fix a lot of things in Path, but here we are. I mean, this begs the question. I think the obvious choice is to just change the way the elemental pen scales, because that's the metric that makes it as good as it is with giving you everything else. So if they just make, again, they just make that amount of pen they give, if they half it, would it be totally still viable? 100%, because it's a very comfy item, and it almost makes it like your whole build gets like unga bunga, really fucking low IQ. You just like, I put stat on, build good.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, it totally works. And it's so well in conjunction with things like Essence. Because like, oh, I just slam an Essence on, and I got my best in slot ring because I hit one other good stat. Like, that's fine. You know, that's amazing. But that's only amazing if it predicated on them actually keeping the item the way it is in the future. So that's just one of these things we just have to fingers crossed that it gets... I think the wrong choice is definitely nerfing the drop rate, because that solves nothing. If I've heard people mention like, oh, we'll just make it a 5% drop rate. I was like, well, all it does is just screws the guy. I mean, people are just gonna do the boss as much as they're already gonna do the boss because it's profitable because of the ascendancy jewels, and then it just, whenever it does drop, now it's just gonna fuck over the guy who just wants to play the build, who doesn't have, like, it's like the little man, you know, he just got to spend twice as much to buy his Omni, and then nothing gets touched. Like, it doesn't matter at all for someone who's actually making this build in Trade League, whether it costs 5x or 50x. There's really not much of a difference. Like, I'll just build it week 2 instead of week 1. Like, that does nothing. So that's definitely the wrong answer. I think the only real right answer is the one Manny said effectively, or what we all come to the same conclusion to, which is just, you have to just nerf the LE pen. And if
it's such an interesting item, right? I would love for it to stay in the game as a viable option. Obviously not as strong as it is right now, because it's not just a viable option, it's like the only option right now. But
I don't think that Omni is like, if you had a blank check and you told me to make the strongest build possible, I don't think I'd ever make an Omni build. I think it's just is the default choice because of its convenience to cost ratio.
Yeah, it's the cost efficiency is insane,
yeah,
right?
It is the Honda Accord.
People keep saying Omni gear is hard to make. I don't see why. It's insanely easy to gear up a character.
I think when people say that, they're thinking of double stat multi rings with perfect prefixes. Like, they're not. You don't need that. All you literally need is you slam an essence onto a ring, and it hits like another 20 int on top of your strength, and you're
live
good to
resist
go.
gear, you make live stats gear. It's the same difficulty.
But Essence really makes it so easy because you're guaranteeing almost 70 Omni every deafening, and there's 3 different types of deafening essences you could toss on. And this league shits. I mean, the mechanic shits at essences more than anything else in the history of the game. So this has been like the perfect storm of making the gear for this build. Like, it's so easy to make Omni gear.
And even if the pen gets nerfed significantly and the item is not the default choice for every build, it's still gonna be a very interesting way to build. Like say you're playing on the left side of the tree, but you want to run added lightning and Wrath, but your build has like 20 int, right?
Yep.
Now you can play with Omniscience to fix that.
Well, it's even to the point where if the pen got nerfed, the thing I almost want to compare it to is when Inquisitor was first introduced. It was like the default choice for all LE damaging because it ignored res. And then eventually over time, we got so many ways to reduce res that no longer became the default choice, because why would I want res to be at always 0? Like, that's nice in half the scenarios, but I can now make it even lower with double curse and you have exposure and all these other things. So the thing, like, Omni stacks with all of that. It's not like you playing a Templar and like, oh, this is my one form of penetration or negating res and I have nothing else. You could also just run exposure. You could also just run a curse. So even if you had it, I mean, at the very worst case scenario, if they even half it, you just might have to, you could spec into Whispers and get a second curse and you're pretty much back at where you were before, or just run an exposure or something. Like, there's so many ways to reduce res. That is not the problem, like, upon investment. That is a very easy thing to get a ton of, is res, like, reduction.
I just remembered you asked, like, what items and we think are overpowered right now, right? And we've been talking about Omni for like 20 minutes now.
Yep.
What do you guys think about the Perseverance build on Champions? That thing seems insanely busted. I see it in Gauntlet probably if people find it.
I think with current determination numbers, it's kind of busted. So I think the belt is not a problem. I think determination might be the problem.
Yeah, determination is to the point where you could just, like, a lot of anyone who's like a summoner or even a caster on the left side of the tree, I'd say almost half the time now they're just running determination, because you could just, with no investment, get to like 30-40k armor, and that's a lot of armor to get to. But it also, again, it's predicated on the fact that, like, you could just reduce the numbers of determination by even half, but they just have to make it so the game doesn't do as much fizz damage. But that's only predicated on them if they're nerfing the game, which I don't think they're going to do so easily. So they could reroute the numbers so it's not as good for that one build. It's just a balanced decision they have to make.
Yeah, it's a typical classic PoE thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this belt has been in the game for years, maybe used in every now and then in like a niche build, and suddenly after a couple like changes to balance, like armor and evasion values and so on, the belt's insanely busted suddenly.
Do you want to just quickly describe the build for those who don't know?
It's a belt that gives you increased damage based on the lowest of armor or evasion. So it's like good for builds that scale armor plus evasion.
Might have one.
And champions that happen to run Grace, Determination, Defiance banner, with scaling a bunch of aura effect and having all the increased armor and evasion on their tree and on their ascendancy, they have a very easy time reaching like 50k each, or maybe even 100k each. And then the belt ends up giving like 50 or 80% more damage. Like, it's an insane belt.
Yeah, I've looked at POBs of those builds, and you literally taking percent evasion nodes are like 4% more damage increases while using this belt. So
it's a build where you would take. Sorry, you would take the belt over Mage Blade or Headhunter on those builds. That's how good the belt is. Yeah. That's all I gotta say, I think.
Yeah. So if you had, I could just do some quick math here. Yeah, break out the handy dandy Microsoft calculator. So if you had 50,000 armor is your low end, right? That's like the low one, right? You divide by 200, it gives you 250% increased attack damage on a shit version of the build. That's a lot of attack damage.
Yeah, it's like a 250 wet belt.
Yes.
And you get percent life, res, onslaught, all the time.
Yes, yeah. Perma onslaught's also super juicy. And the fact that, like you're saying, I mean, we talked about this like ad nauseum for older of these podcasts, but uniques that do something inherently unique, uniques that do something good on top of that, like if it just had the attack thing, that'd be cool, because that's the whole thing you could build around. And then it gives you onslaught, and And then it also gives you Fortify, technically, because it's on melee. The melee hits, it's done. But then it has the most important thing for like that makes uniques go from like good to great in some point in time. It also has Res in Life, or Res in ES. Like, it's such an important thing that gets, I would say, almost overlooked at times. But there's a reason that, like, Shavs doesn't have to have, like, doesn't have to have lightning res, but it does. And it's, like, not a negligible amount. It's enough that it's actually, like, important for the build, and it now changes your gearing choices. So it's things like, just makes it a little bit, like, it's like the chef's kiss on top of the item. It's just, it also has life and res. Yeah, it's those things are pretty nice. But yeah, it's a really cool build. There's over a month left in League, so there's tons of time to make it if you want to now. If you have a perseverance,
I mean, honestly, it's going to be on the top of my list for next League if it doesn't get touched, for sure. As like maybe a second build.
What you're describing is just can be molded to any attack build in the game. You're just playing a champion that's just stacking things that are already good, whether it's Determination, Define Spin, or even Grace if you want on top of it. All three is no problem. You could actually run Determination, Grace, Defiance, and Purity of Elements if you wanted to just like walk around, be a chunky, tanky boy, and not be fucked with. And then you slap on a belt, and it's like 250% increased damage on top of all that, and Onslaught. So you're also, which means you're walking in town faster. But yeah, so okay, like, dude. It's so good. That's why Mage Blood's the best belt in the game, because it makes you go zoom in town. But yeah, like, and this belt is an Alk to throw away unique. Has been for history.
It's actually kind of rare though. Maybe like tier 2 or something.
The thing is, because it's on a Vanguard base, so it has the prerequisite drop of having to drop off of an Atlas something, base. Right? Yep. So it has to drop a Vanguard belt, which in itself also has implicit armor and evasion, a non-negligible amount. When I think you could what's it called that, right? Yes, you can. There's a catalyst
of each. So yeah, 400 armor and evasion. That's a lot.
There's the defense. What the fuck is the defense catalyst? Oh, there it is. The tempering catalyst. So you slapped it on there, and it easily has 400 flat armor and evasions. So it's not, or I mean, it doesn't give you. It's like both metrics, so it's even spicier. But yeah, that's a cool build.
What other uniques can you think of that you expect to be
nerfed? To me, the obvious two are definitely just both necklaces, and I don't think the other necklace. I think the other necklace will be. I'll pull it up on the screen. Ashes does a lot, and it does something that is super fucking cool, which is the plus 20 to 30 quality. So the 30 quality to all skills. The whole thing was, and I'm showing on a character that's using the Phantasmal Spark. It can change alt quality gems to reach that 100 cap of whatever that thing is. A lot of alt quality gems do a lot of cool things. This one, for example, does lightning damage to chaos, meaning you can have all your lightning damage be chaos. And that's like, it's a build enabling unique. The thing that I think will probably be nerfed, if it ever gets nerfed, is going to be the reservation efficacy of skills, the RMR.
I really hope so, yeah.
So at the moment it's 10 to 20. If they just make it 5 to 10, I think it'll still be a very good amulet at what it does. Is it the best amulet in the game for all builds? No, I don't think it's objectively as streamlined and strong as Omniscience. It has a much, much, much wider reach as far as what it can do, but it is like the most unique. It does something nothing else in the game does, and it does something that not only enables it to be used for a variety of builds, but it also enables it, like, reactivated every alt quality active skill in the game to be used for some cool and funky stuff. And they're not even like super good. So most alt quality gems aren't like insane. Like, some of them are really stupid, like your fireballs are slow, or like your freezing pulse now can chain. But like it could be really cool, and it just means so if they ever want to introduce more alt qualities, or can mean some like funky things can be activated in the future. It's just like a very path item. As long as they don't touch the quality part, I think the item's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I really would think that even if you remove the reservation, this item would be still fine.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit heavy-handed, but I think it would be fine still.
Yeah. It definitely the key components are definitely the plus one.
Stone unique, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's even if you can put it on really any build, it's pretty much okay. Like it does a variety of, like, the quality to all skill gems, even if not used for alt quality gems, still is a non-negligible amount of damage you're gaining, even for just supports. Like, if you just look at not supports, just like a variety of gems that are pretty useful. Things like the quality on Sniper's Mark. Like
yeah, Curses, Smart.
Yeah, like
Flameless cooldown. It's very comfy.
I think there's other. Let me see if I have an example. I don't think I have any other ones.
It's a lot of things like, let's say, shield
Heralds,
charge,
shield charge.
Heralds, shield charge, multi-shot duration.
Flame
all of the
Flame Dash's
stuff
CDR goes through the roof also. Like a lot of things, yeah. As you're saying. Or even like War Cries, the cooldown get reduced like significantly for some of them. So just cool.
Even if it gets nerfed a lot, it could still be a good stepping stone unique because it has around a 20% drop rate apparently. And the boss it drops from the Eater of Worlds is, you pretty much kill it as soon as you hit tier 16 maps. That's when you kill it for the first time. It's like a quest, right? Mm-hmm. So, you have a 20% chance to get this unique in like one of your first tier 16 maps.
Yep, it has the same dropper as the boots, so it's 25% chance to drop.
I thought it was like 40, 30, 20, 10.
40, 25, 25, 10. That's what the wiki says. And if you add that up, it does equal to 100, to be fair.
Yeah, I saw like big sample sizes and it looked like 40, 30, 20, 10, but I guess it could be 25, 25 maybe.
It's a negligible...
Yeah, very similar.
Like those
negligible difference.
Other answers are not that important, to be honest.
And the best part, I think, of where it drops from is it drops from a boss that is piss easy, and it has a guaranteed unique drop rate of... Like, it guarantees a unique, I should say. So it's like, on average, it's taking 4 or 5 kills, which is like, if you're moving slug pace, 4 or 5 days to get it. And then you're just pumping after that, Like, it's super nice. It's the exact same dropper as Omni off of the other boss. So, they're both, like, super nice. I mean, we can actually, if you want to... do you guys have anything else to say about uniques you think will be nerfed, etc.?
Well, I guess the whole, like, brittle mechanic is on the
okay.
block.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I've been thinking that for, like, 3 weeks.
Interrogation, yeah.
Yeah, it's been on chopping block for literally, like, 3-4 days, and everyone's been saying, 15 base crit is pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. He's gonna get nerfed, and we are here after 3 weeks, and nothing changed.
Yes.
Yeah, can't really think of anything else item-wise that I think is like must need a nerf. It's hard to tell.
Tabby, I think Tabby should be 5 links. Tabby's too good as is.
Want to talk about the uniques from the new bosses?
Yeah, so we have on the Siege of the Atlas section, I guess we could start with that. It's fine. So the expansion Siege of Atlas introduced 4 bosses to the game, 2 for each color. Eater World's Infinite Hunger on the blue side, Black Star, Searing Exarch on the red side. They're all very easy. I would almost even say that the smaller bosses are more difficult mechanic-wise than the larger ones.
I agree.
Unintuitive, mostly.
Well, very I would disagree. I think that Black Star is pretty intuitive. The second I walked in the arena for Black Star, I was like, all right, something's up with the red and the blue. Like, the colors tell it something's happening. What to do with that something, that's one thing. But, I mean, Infinite Hunger is probably the worst design boss Pat's ever had.
Agree.
Such a piece of shit.
Just the worst.
It's a very high bar.
When they introduced it, so there's, to fast track what the boss does, you walk in an arena, a fat man yells at you, he starts farting everywhere, and then eventually the whole arena floods with poop. And then what you're supposed to do, which is every fiber in your body is telling you to do the opposite, is you're supposed to dive headfirst into the shit pile, and you get teleported into the shit dimension. And then when in the shit dimension, you then have to hop from island to island to find a portal. And the portal is in a location that the sludge on the ground is moving towards, which you somehow have to catch that, first off. And if you happen to touch the sludge, every second you're in the sludge, what was in the initial release, you lost about 20% of your armor and evasion. That actually stacked it stacked to absolute 0 because it was a flat value and it was retained upon losing. So if you, much like Phoenix, the Shaper Guard, if you had 400 stacks and you died and you come back, you're still at 400 stacks when you're back in this fight now. So it's just like beyond miserable your first couple attempts, because then he was probably white hitting you for 400k or something. And that's not even my biggest gripe with these fucking bosses. The drop rate of their uniques, and they each have 2 uniques, I'm going to just say non-existent. I don't think they exist.
Incredibly low.
I've killed the Fat Man over 20 times now. I haven't seen either glove, which is to me painful.
Drop rates are like 2%, maybe 5%, something like that. It's incredibly low.
Which is... I think I was tracking my kills, and I done like 70 of them this week, 70 or 80, which is a lot, obviously. And I just got the second glove today, which I consider insanely lucky.
Yeah, because you could have gotten the same glove twice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did already, but the thing is, that's not the point. The point is, like, I remember running a session of 30 of them and dropping nothing. So that's to put that in perspective. It's just
the most painful part is I think that they have some of the coolest uniques locked behind them that do such interesting things that I would love to use the Black Zenith gloves and make something with that. Like, it's such a cool unique, but I'll just never. There's a very good chance I just won't see them in Aldous League, which to me is disgusting.
They also seem weaker power level wise than the big boss drops, right?
100%. They're not even.
They're supposed to be like the lower tier uniques, but for some reason they're like 100 times rarer because they're not guaranteed drops. Like it's an odd design choice for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Metamorph debacle, shit uniques with insane drop rates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate, to be honest, because those bosses are pretty cool. At least Blackstar. Let's not say that the Fatty is a good one. It's not.
Yeah, Blackstar has it's the helmet that I just almost want to say is worthless. And then the ring is great. Really good.
The ring's great.
It's best in slot, I think, for a lot of builds that the ring has two modalities, left and right slot. And one gives cover in ash, which is a huge buff, and the other one gives cover in frost, which I don't think exists outside of this ring.
That's new.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about the ring, like the frost version of the ring, is that it only applies the covered in frost when you freeze the enemy or while he's frozen.
Yes, which is unfortunate.
No, I think it's when you
freeze. Sure. So it's 5 seconds when you freeze them. So once they're frozen, the timer starts.
Like the relevant endgame bosses, they can't be frozen, right?
Correct. So it does nothing. Yeah.
So it's weird.
Yeah, they might just. Well, I think they should probably just change them to like a 20% chance on being hit with whatever that respective element is. So at least they could work on things. But in this current iteration, they don't. But yet again, they also give upwards of 40 to Colt and Fire Res, and then duration of elements, and then crit chance, and it's also on an opal ring. So it's just like a combination of a lot of good things. Just a good ring.
About the big bosses, I actually really enjoy their fights.
Same.
Especially the Exarch is probably more impressive. Like that fun. The problem is fight, when I did it for the first time, I had a lot of fun. It was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's also like that. So the mechanic for the Exarch is a wall of balls rolling towards you, and if there's like a gap in them, you're supposed to head for the gap, or you could do things like place a totem down or summon something, and if the balls hit them, the balls disappear.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bullet hell mechanic.
Yeah, but it's just something you've never seen in Path really implemented like that, but has existed through so many games historically that it's very familiar from like a gaming perspective. Like, oh, that's like the firewall mechanic from insert WoW boss here, or like whatever. There's like a ton of examples in games that have a very similar mechanic. So actually, there was cool to see.
Speaking of WoW, there was a boss that literally did exactly the same thing, like not long ago, like half a year ago, that I implemented. So there might be some inspiration.
To be fair, this has existed. That mechanic has existed in WoW since.
Yeah, obviously.
Wrath.
It's mostly about the how it looks. It pretty much looks exactly the same. So
are you saying Chris Wilson is stealing secrets from Jeff Kaplan? Is that what you're saying? He's taking WoW secrets from the headquarters of Blizzard HQ theft.
I'm gonna say nothing.
Okay, plead the fifth. The drops off of Searing Exarch are also quite nice. I mean, it drops a really interesting combination of unique. So you have Annihilating Light, which is just a disgustingly strong staff for things that it works on, to the point where, not that this was a surprise, but elemental skills dealing triple damage is just basically better than, for most applicable builds, like the mirror equivalent of those staffs. Like the best Cane of Kulamek you could possibly make was turned out to be correct, which is about 20% worse than the staff. And the staff is shit easy to get at a 40% drop rate off of a boss that guarantees unique. And it's a very easy deficit to overcome, which is the reduced LA res. So
I think it's easy to overcome. I think it was actually pretty hard to overcome.
So I'll tell you how easy it was. I played Arc build that used Omniscience, that, and the new Jewel melding, which has the exact same thing, and I was still res cap without much difficulty. Really? Yeah, you could run all the uniques, and it's fine. I had 3,500 Omniscience, and that was hard to get.
I didn't go that crazy on Omniscience.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's not like it's that hard to stack the metric. You just travel across the world, searching far and wide for stats, but. If you run purity of elements and then you're pretty much that offsets it. It's not 70% reduced. Well, it pretty much does.
60% reduced, so you need like 210 res instead of 75.
Yeah, but Omni just takes care of so much.
Yeah,
Omni you had shit gear. That's the problem.
Way to build it. Yeah, I agree.
You manning your gear shit.
It's doable. Just saying, it's a pretty harsh penalty, but definitely worth it, yeah.
Yeah, triple damage is good. And then the shield is not as good as the other two uniques in this boss.
I kind of disagree. I think I really like
the shield. I like the shield, but it definitely is, you can't say it's as strong as Annihilating Light or Omni.
I think it might be more usable.
Oh my god.
Maybe it's not that strong damage-wise, but it's really strong defensively on some builds.
I think it is actually, it is strong damage-wise because it gives you Scorch.
I mean, that as well, but then you can cover defense to get damage somewhere. But on top of that, it adds Scourge, and it's really cool because the rolls on it are so variable. Yeah. You have huge ranges on everything, so it's a big difference between a terrible one and the difference between the good one. And also, you can double corrupt it or corrupt it for another taken S. So I think I really like this item.
And you have Omni, which you've talked about forever. So these are all in the same boss. Then you have Dissolution of the Flesh, which I haven't used yet.
That one is weird.
it reserves your life
profiles
damage.
Of people trying to make it work, but
nothing seems
they did
good.
That well.
I think the other Jewel's a lot better, personally, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it's got some good drops. I think overall. It's also
they're gonna add a new one, right? They're gonna add one more item.
They are, and here's the weird thing about this boss. So. It's an invitation that you craft to run the boss, the incandescent invitation. There's currently other bosses in the game that are a similar ilk that we can't craft. So things like Maven, things like Cirrus, we can't craft those, right? Because they're fragment based. And the weird thing is, crafting the invitation for this boss doesn't really do anything because it always has a guarantee unique drop. And the guarantee unique drops have fixed rates. So if I have this thing crafted to the 9s with fucking 110 quantity and corrupted, it's not going to make a Forbidden Flame have a higher drop rate. It's not going to make an Omni have a higher drop rate.
It doesn't increase Forbidden.
It will make the Jewel have a drop rate, I think.
No, why would it? It's a fixed drop rate. It's increased with the node.
It's not a fixed drop rate, though. The Forbidden Flame is like an extra drop, like Watcher's Eye from Elder, right?
I'm pretty sure it still caps at 10% with the node. I don't think the Forbidden Flame has any higher chance of dropping.
But have you seen... I don't know. That would be really weird if it did, but I expected the Forbidden Flame drop rate to be influenced by the quantity.
Everything I've heard and seen from a variety of sites is that it's a fixed drop rate with the notable. I think the only thing that it's affecting is the chance for an exceptional Embers to drop.
That would be tragic.
I think that is the tragic thing. Because everyone I know who farms hundreds of these things that in Trade League that are running freaking Forbiddens, they all run them white because there's absolutely no incentive to run them crafted. And that brings me to my point, which is you have bosses that have variable drop rates for usable, viable currency. So things like Cirrus dropping, which was an Awakened Orb, or things like Maven dropping Orb of Conflict, or Uber Elder dropping the Orb of Dominance. Those are variable drop rates that can be scaled up. This seems like it'd be rife to have an invitation for those bosses, because then scalable difficulty, like Legi was mentioning, I think it was on stream a couple days ago, or someone, maybe I'm just giving Legi too much credit. It was, imagine Maven with LMP, or having craftable Maven would be super interesting if it had the drop rate of the orb could go up to 50% or something if you craft it super crazy. So it just seems weird that this is a craftable thing that doesn't really scale with anything. I mean, even if the flame does increase, it's not like the chance of Omni goes from 25% to 45%. It's like, that doesn't change anything.
Maybe they're just trying it out. New approach. Maybe they think this could be more interesting.
Yeah.
They don't have to make it rewarding, right? It could just be
fun.
Like just limit testing. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
Just to show off. You can show off your 100% quant boss, but it doesn't actually drop much more.
Yeah.
If they make it too rewarding, then it kind of feels mandatory, right? Mm-hmm. And we're back into this pitfall where, oh no, I can't do 100 quant exarch. I should sell this item to someone who can run 100 quant.
That's just how Simulacrum goes. I mean, that's like
exactly.
That's just the next.
Can't really have both, right? Either you make it rewarding, or you have it be accessible to everyone.
It can't be good and fun. You have to pick one. This is can't have your cake and eat it too. So of Eater has 4 drops. The Gluttonous Tide is the bow. That's the common drop. Have you guys used the bow at all? The frenzy, frenzy meme bow.
It's a lot of enough base damage.
It's a lot of arrows.
I don't know. It doesn't have enough juice to make it good, I think.
It's not juice
enough. The rare bows, especially
the theory about it is to use the stat that says chance to gain max frenzies when you get a frenzy, right? You want to get that stat on. I think that there's very few sources of it, like Precursor's Emblem.
Yep.
And I don't even know what else right now.
Elevated +1 frenzy has that 10%.
Oh, okay. But if you can scale that stat, that would enable the bow. But I haven't seen anyone really try it.
It's a pretty big prerequisite.
The theory about it.
That's a rough prerequisite to have the bow start to work. It's a specific precursor.
Yeah, true.
But think of the arrows
thing, right?
But I haven't tried it, honestly. I can't really say this is bad. We might be underrating it because I haven't tried it.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part for me is just it's bow with his increased damage and no flat on it as well. And it's on the Citadel base.
It's also slow as fuck, like compared to super fast bows.
It's 1.3 base damage compared to like 1.5, 1.45. That's exactly what you need on strong bows.
Yeah.
So kind of
poopy. It's a good MTX though. Actually, I don't know if it has art. I'm hoping it does. Oh yeah, it does. Okay. All right, it doesn't even look that good. Okay, never mind. Ashes we talked about. What about the boots? The best boots in the game.
I mean,
I honestly don't know what they do right now.
Okay.
They apply grasping vines, so they have to be insanely powerful, right?
They give you grasping vines. They make you grasp.
Next, please.
Yeah, you gain 3 grasping vines and you take a crit. So I don't think there's any way to not be crit, right? You could not take damage from crits, but how do you not be crit?
I mean, you run blast down, right?
I guess you could just just kill things from far. No, this. How do you take a crit? How do you guarantee taking a crit? How do you prevent?
I don't know. I think that item is not very good.
You know what the worst part is? It says nearby stationary enemies gain a grasping vine every 0.5 seconds. How many mobs are you fighting that are stationary that survive more than 2 seconds? A boss. Can a boss be grasping vined? How many bosses are stationary? Maven, Cirrus, Elder Shaper, all are fucking teleporting around. Both endgame bosses are flipping back and forth. Stationary enemies. Can't be a ton of those. Best boots in the game. Melding of Flesh is the other one. That's the jewel. I think this one's quite good. If you could make it work, but
I think that item is top tier. If you can make
definitely.
It work.
Aegis Aurora
really
feels nice with it also. Aegis Aurora is really good right now too.
That as well. Even the shields that Rogue spews out with the max res and reintroduction of max res to any shield bases, right? So it makes it even better. So I really like this jewel.
It's a good jewel. Also interesting, this one is not reduced. It's negative
minus res.
Right? Yeah.
Works on Diani prototype builds, right?
It does. It even says in the wiki, can be used to get closer to the negative 200 res cap for Diani's. How kind of them to give us that sweet tip on the new wiki. but yeah, it's a good jewel.
One thing I like about the boss fight, or I don't know if I like it, but one thing to note about these new boss fights is that they don't have any immunity phases or any like forced stalling. So, if your build has like 100 million DPS, you literally go in there and kill the bosses in 2 seconds, right?
Yep.
They
have time-gated mechanics. So like after 20 seconds, I think they initiate their whatever that big mechanic is. They each have respectively like the balls.
Yeah, they have like one immune phase, right? The bullet hell on the red guy, and the blue one has the phase where you have to touch the balls and enable
gently
them.
Touch the balls. Yeah. Now, when you're touching the balls gently, Manny, to activate them, what's your technique?
I usually go clockwise.
You gentle or you go quickly?
Oh, just flame dash on top of them.
Okay, you flame dash on top of the balls. Got it. Good. Super quick balls. They're good bosses, though.
Do you think they have been like listening to us in the boss design there? Because people have been complaining about the boring Shaper fight, right? These old fights like Shaper, Cirrus, even Maven to some degree.
Yeah.
When you for the top 1% players that farm them like hundreds of times and have very strong builds that face them instantly. Those fights are really annoying to farm.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I did 15 Mavens yesterday in one sitting, and it felt like I was getting like a root canal at the dentist. It's just like the amount of time you're spending just fucking around and running in circles and playing the memory. It's just, the thing is like they're cool the first time you do them, maybe the second time.
Yeah, exactly.
But after the 100th, it's like it's a combination
it's a trade-off, right?
It's brutal, but these things aren't designed. I almost want to say they're not designed to be run this much. Like we're doing it too much, I think. So are they listening? I don't know. It's one of those things where I think we'd have to see a consistent pattern of change of theory. So if the next 2 bosses they introduce are also in line with how this one is, where there's, it's craftable, it's tradable, and you could blow through it if you want to. I think it's the best case scenario for a boss design as far as like that metric of it. Like I think this was perfect, these bosses, for that.
Yeah, it was designed around like the high-end players, right?
Mm-hmm. I think, well, it's divided. I think it's one of these things that's almost like weird trickle-down economics, where it's like it's designed on the higher players because they could buy them in mass and run and blow through them. But also, if you're a low tier player time-wise, or maybe lower skill level, and you don't want to waste it, you could just sell it. So there's a route for that too. But they're easy enough. I think these are the easiest endgame bosses they've ever introduced. Personally, I think they're easy enough that anybody can do them, and there's entry-level versions of them, despite the entry-level versions of small bosses being probably harder. At least it was like a thought process of like, oh, you do the small ones, you get an idea of where you're going to be going. You need damage-wise or defensive-wise. You do the big ones. We'll introduce the easy versions in the quest variation, and then you have the real ones you could trade later on, and that ones will be a little bit harder, but like more rewarding. I think that was perfect design. Like, I think everything with this expansion was pretty much flawless as far as it was implemented. So hopefully they keep it up for the next one and the next one, and then I'll be like, you've done a good job.
Was it actually a success, though? I do remember.
It's hard to say.
People said the new bosses were very underwhelming. I read statements like, "Wait, I just went in and one-shot this boss, or I killed him in 5 seconds." It was, very underwhelming boss fight. When you do like stuff like Maven or Cirrus for the first time, it takes like 10-15 minutes to go through all the phases.
That sounds like
it feels like an epic endgame fight, right?
I think these fights were epic endgame fights for a different set of people that just weren't the same people who are making their Reddit posts who also go home and sit down when they pee. Like, this is like a whole other subsection of person. Like, the people who are complaining that the boss is like has like insane music, these really cool abilities we've never seen before, is just too easy, can just like go touch grass.
Yeah, I agree. I like the design of these bosses a lot. I hope they keep going with this. I even hope they would like rework old fights like Shaper to drop some of the immune phases,
Well, they could just remove the 4 bosses.
Mini bosses.
That's an easy fix, to be honest. Yeah, or you could even do something like just add the bosses towards the running phase. Imagine you're running like when Shaper phases, you're running towards the star caller at the end, and then just like a map boss shows up and chases you. Just something. There's things they can do. I'd like them to take more risks when it comes to revamping old content, for sure. I mean, they had the balls to just remove Prophecy full stop. They could definitely do something like change Shaper Elder Sully. I mean, another like iconic, but definitely needs a makeover.
I think they were designed in a different time of PoE, so
back in the day.
Yeah, we are just outgrown the content like that, and so
Are you a big boy?
I really hope they did. Well,
you're a big grown-up boy.
Big, yeah. But yeah, I really hope they learned, as you guys said, and learn from the mistakes, and we'll see. Time will tell. But I really do like the bosses as well. I think there are
the music's fantastic. Yeah, the vibe. I just really like the environment. You know, like the voice acting from both bosses. Either Worlds especially, it gives me such strong vibe. Do you remember? I think you've probably both seen the Pirates of the Caribbean films.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so do you remember Davy Jones, like the squid guy?
Yeah.
When he's playing his organ on the Flying Dutchman as it's going through the ocean. Like I got such heavy vibes of like, because that fight he's like Squid Man, and then there's like the orchestral organ music in the background. It's like so familiar and so cool to see that type of thing.
Yeah,
and
it's awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Anyone who complains about that can eat my ass.
I didn't like Exarch as much as I thought I would, to be honest. I like Ether more. Overall, yeah, Exarch is great, but I had a bit higher expectations from like how it would play out and how it would feel.
Yeah.
For me, Exarch feels kind of not there. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I really like Ether of Wars. Yeah, it's amazing.
I think. Well, the thing is, also Blackstar is a lot cooler looking of a fight compared to Exarch. Like it's a lot flashier. Like the boss leading up to it.
You guys agree that they were really easy, right?
Oh yes, they're definitely extremely easy.
I almost wonder if they like half the damage values or something, just so everyone can experience them easily in the first league they come out.
Oh, they might just double them next
nerf
league.
them next league.
Yeah.
Because it feels so odd when you like even the big slams of those guys, they hurt for way less than you would expect.
Like 1,000 damage, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, like you fight the old bosses like Shaper or Maven, and things actually hurt.
Shot you.
And then you do this new boss, and you tank his slam, and my HP didn't even move. Like, what happened? Yeah.
When I was doing the Mavens last night, my Mage Blood build was 7k. I mean, perfect gear, pretty much. When they do, like when Maven does any of her abilities, like what's the one that she shoots the projectiles that has the pen? What is her fucking voice line? Not handle this. She's the what's her
the barrage projectile?
Yeah,
blanking as well.
That one, that like almost one shots me still. Like that's so much damage, and that's a non-crafted base Maven. Like or even like Oshabi. If you just tank Oshabi's when she says "Why fight progress," that little plant projectile she hits out is hitting like 6 to 8k. I mean, there's previous bosses have just done insane amounts of damage. This one just tickles by comparison. But I know
that's
there's
what I mean.
like
I don't want to just say this boss is easy because I'm such a good gamer or something, right?
You're a real good gamer, Manny.
You can really just compare the damage numbers, and
No, it's not even on the same level. It does less damage than like a
weak,
tier 16 boss, probably.
I think it's pretty much that they wanted people to experience them and do them, so maybe they undertuned them.
This is like Path of Exile's Raid Finder. It's like it's the equivalent of every man can come do this. But
wouldn't be surprised if they buffed them
from a league.
I mean, they could double the damage as long as they don't touch the life pool and add phases. I don't think anyone gives a shit. I don't really ever mind a boss having super punishing damage and mechanics as long as they don't have fucking eye phases. Like I don't want to see any iframes or these ridiculously long phase transitions. Like as long as you could just go in there and blow your load and you die, he die. Like we got 6 portals to use, It's like it's important. I mean, it's been an ideology that Chris has said forever, which is portals are a resource, and that's like you'd think. I feel like they're just not designing around it for a lot of previous bosses. Like for example, Maven, that sort of stuff. It's like because the first iteration of Maven's even memory game, if you failed it, you walked right back in. It was another memory game instantly. And it's like cool, man. I just have to do this or I fail now. Like I like it. And a part of it, but I think it's much more better than when they have it now, which is you just do a bunch of damage, and if you fuck up, you die, and you come back in, you have extra chances.
So should we move on to Atlas passives finally?
No. I want to talk about every little detail about each tentacle.
If you're still talking about the new bosses, should we quickly talk about the influence too? I think that was one of the most impactful things in this league.
Sure, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, pretty much Atlas and the influence. How
yeah, I guess it's tied to the Atlas because there are Atlas passives that buff the influence as well.
Yeah, so
which I pretty much had for the entire league. I think I've never spiked out of them ever.
Oh, I've only had the blue one on because that's the only one I'm really doing. Until I get the jewel, I'm not swapping. But what's it called? The you have two different sides. I have the tree pulled up right now, but there's two different sides. You have the blue side and you have the red side. And the blue side is, for some reason, a lot more forgiving than the red side in how the nodes are. I'm not sure why they did this, but the blue side, just like the first notable, is increased chance to find Eater World's altars by 50%. And the red side has effectively the same thing, but they also say you take extra damage for some reason.
It's not quite the same thing. The red one has like a chance to spawn one at the beginning of the map.
Yes.
And the blue one just increases everything. So people actually argue that the red one is maybe better because when you get to the altar early on in the map, it's much more valuable than getting it on the last pack.
Sure.
Right?
However, the mods in which the red altar has are significantly more deadly than the mods in which the blue altar has.
It might be a bit of a build thing though. Like, I've heard people say they prefer doing the red one. It's safer for them.
I don't know.
Those people are dumb. Those people are dumb. There's something fucky with the fire damage that comes off of the red altars. It's the burning ground does more damage than I think anything in the game has ever existed.
Well, it's because it's scaled off the main hand damage of monsters, right? So if you run a map that has like 100% added cold and 120% added fire or something, then the burning ground suddenly deals more than triple damage.
But I've never seen any ground mechanic where if I touch it, like for even half a sec, like my toe just dips in it, I could watch my life pool just entirely delete with capped res. Like that's never existed before, and that exists with this mechanic to the point where
it's 10% increased damage taken for each altar.
And you just have to run Soul of Aberrath if you're doing that. Like there's no way you're not putting on Soul of Aberrath, because if you touch those puddles, and it's the first part is it's an on death mechanic from the enemy. So if you're playing a melee build and you kill an enemy, I don't think there's enough like brain cells in the entire universe to get out of there fast enough. You're not taking an amount of dot damage if you're in melee range. Not to mention the meteor part. There's the whole meteor thing also, which is like just randomly the meteors drop from the sky and can one-shot you depending on how the map's rolled. It's hell. It's hell. Red side's hell.
Frustrating.
But they do the same thing effectively. The left side of each wheel has a 10% chance to grant double progress, which initially was bugged and would skip invitations, which was fun. And then they fixed that. So now it just gives you, instead of having to run 28 maps, you have to run 25.5 maps on average.
Yeah, very minor buff.
Yeah, I don't think I can't imagine really it saves you 2 maps effectively. Maybe if you're running hundreds, it makes sense.
The relevant nodes for actually mapping with the influence is
the small ones on the altar side.
Well, obviously the increased altar chance is very useful, but
yeah.
The extra pack size of influence monsters is huge because
and it works
a lot
for
of the
both.
rewarding things they work for. They add like a chance for influence monsters to drop a scarab or a currency item or something like that.
Yeah.
And having more pack size on them obviously gives you more stuff then, which is huge.
It is good to know that the small nodes work for both sides. So if you're running, really, I mean, I have both of them on my tree, and I think that a lot of people probably have both of them also. So if you were like only doing the blue side, obviously you'd have the blue big wheel and you'd have the blue small wheel and then the 2 small nodes. But I also go to the left side and I have the red nodes because that's also another 20% increased pack size for influence mods. The big node does nothing, I don't think at all for the blue side.
It doesn't nothing.
No. Yeah, that does absolutely nothing. So it's just 20%. I mean, I'm traveling a decent distance for it, but like it's 20% increased pack size. It's a noticeable difference when this could be the difference between you getting 4 scarabs versus 6 scarabs or something like that. So it is quite substantial.
So one of the things about this new influence is that it actually procs in every single map.
Yeah.
Like that was the thing that actually it almost shocked me at the beginning of the league how good it is. In the past, when we had influence, like the Conqueror influence for the last 2 years, it would only proc every 3 maps, right? And you would have 2/3 of a map would not have influence.
Yep.
Now we have these extra monsters in every single map. We have altars in every single map. It's insanely rewarding,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it really bad to run the Maven influence, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's little to no point, I think, to really run Maven, except for if you just need to witness like Breach Lords or Shaper Elder Guardian. Like that feels like the only thing.
It just makes every map feel so dense. It's awesome. That
Yeah.
was like one of the most enjoyable things for me early on in the league.
Yeah.
It made me roll into a Winter Up character right away.
Mm-hmm.
Lets you run the layouts you want, which is probably something like Strand. Like,
yep.
I think most of us are running Strand.
We're all running Strand for all different, not all different reasons, but mostly different reasons. I'm running Strand because it's nice in my eyes.
It's really, really nice that you can just choose the map that has no big innate density and still make it nice.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, Strand is, historically, it's a nice map because it's linear and it's a darker color palette, so it's like just chill to run. But its pack size hasn't been amazing. But this is where you're saying it really fills, this plus just everything else on the Atlas really fills the gaps in the pack. So if you have this and like Breach or boxes or, you know, all that type of, and it really makes a map that used to be like B tier density, but like S tier, you know, comfy vibes, now just like double S tier, and it's feeling good. You know, it feels like you're doing a old juiced gorge with like squids on it or something. You got, it feels nice.
True.
That's all we really
feel about the
kill things, man.
The altar mods.
Like the actual
yeah. The whole altar mechanic, honestly, it's a bit weird. Like having these things pop up in your map, and then you have to read like 4 lines basically, right? Because there's two options. They both have a reward and some downside that make the map harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you're playing carefully, if you're trying to gain XP, or if you're playing hardcore, God forbid, then you kind of have to read them all, right, and evaluate.
Definitely, because there are some big misclicks that you could hit, like -50 cold and lightning res.
Yeah, there's some really
just one shot you if you, or you know, there's some ones that are negligible, like you have negative defenses per frenzy charge. Well, if you don't have any, that does not. There's a lot that are basically just total misses, but there are some.
Like really sketchy though, yeah.
And there's some that
Nova, for example.
The projectiles and random direction one is if you're playing I was playing it on explosive arrow, that just ruined the build. Like I was just, this map is kind of just done for because I just can't stack charges. But you picking that up on lightning strike, I didn't mind it at all because it was like, oh, I've almost gained clear at this point. But yeah, some of them are pretty brutal. I'm not sure what the solution is. The one thing I did early on, which was I've changed my maps and tree frequently throughout the league, which I think a lot of people have done. And I had I was farming altars heavily with City Square, and that's because of how the altars work. For those who don't know, is they dictate 2 options. One will be a boss option, and one tends to be a monster option. Meaning, if you
not necessarily, right?
Most cases, it's like
there's monster options, there's boss options, and there's like options that are
generic ones.
Your character,
yeah.
So
it's like a 30, probably a 1 in 3 if everything, all the weightings are equal. But if you were to kill a boss the second the map starts, it'll never spawn the boss option, so it'll only ever have objectively beneficial options for the map or character, and it will get much more value out of the altars themselves. So things like City Square or Mesa became very popular because you just enter the map, walk straight to the boss before you kill any mobs, kill the boss, and now you do your full map clear. All the altars that are spawning are only ever going to have player options or enemy options. And it gets you and when those stack up, they stack up big time. So if you start getting things like multiple of the same scarabs and they're dropping duplicate, or you start getting the unique drop rates like 8% per mob you kill, or whatever you get, it's crazy at the end of it. After 5, 6, 7 altars in a map, you kill one pack and like 8 uniques drop out and like 6 scarabs. It feels like you've done something illegal. Like this is too good almost. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it's like it's nice. Yeah, it is very nice.
Early League was it was insane.
And there's only
how many scarabs and unique items you would find in an influence map, and then you would have this influence in every single map, right? Like it was.
Jesus, still happening.
I was very surprised how rewarding it was.
Yeah,
do you guys think that they're gonna turn it down a bit, or do you think this is our new baseline?
What I think should happen, and what should happen, and what they do are 3 different things. I think
that's exactly why I'm asking. What do you?
What I think should happen is I don't think really anything on the Atlas tree or the influence, to me, is overtly offensive enough that needs to be nerfed. as long as the enemy and the content is hard enough, I think this amount of accessibility and juice is totally fine. What I think they're going to do is I think they're going to probably gut the vast majority of this tree in the influence. That's what I think they're going to do, because that's what they always do. But I don't think it needs to happen.
I really think they're nerf the scarab drop rate. I think that's going to be the only change that's going to...
You know, I don't think the scarab thing's problematic, because 2/3 of scarabs are kind of shit. Yeah. And I think that as long as you utilize the Horizon Orb thing, like, I can sustain the scarabs I want. Maybe not the same type, like I might be rusted or polished or gilded, but I can sustain this. Like, if I pick my 4 scarabs, I can sustain those 4. But it requires me cranking out a pretty large quantity of scarabs, and almost a hemorrhaging Horizon Orbs to re-roll my scarabs to get back into that. Like, I have a hard time of... It takes concentrated effort and a specific tree to, I think, fully sustain the exact 4 scarabs you want infinitely and your favorite map in solo self-found. Like, it doesn't happen by accident. Like, I don't think it's... If that's how it's being described by some people, I don't think you can accidentally sustain your favorite map infinitely and also run your same scarabs you want infinitely. Like, that... It takes applied effort. I think that, to me, feels totally fine. I'm applying a decent amount of effort and I'm getting a decent reward back. That, to me, that's like equivalent exchange.
Agree.
Yeah.
But you still have to work for it. And it creates like a new resource management.
So, in a applicable on-screen example, I have my Atlas tree pulled up right now, and my Atlas tree is set up to do what I'm describing, run 4 specific scarabs, because I'm trying to get a character to 100. So I have things like Harbinger, I have things like Shrines, Breach, and what else do I have? Abyss, I think. Yeah, I have Abyss on also. And it's like, to run these 4 things constantly, I have to pick up the entire quant wheel. I have to pick up the 3 quant nodes in the middle. I have to pick up Shaping the Valleys and be running Fortune Favors the Brave every single map for the additional quantity. Like, there's a level of investment is quite high, but this has been the case in Path forever. Like, if you put in a large amount of investment, you'll get a large amount of returns. And even in solo self-found, you get to the point where everything's unlocked. You can do that, and you can get back what you put in. But again, it requires a large amount of effort. And obviously, by doing so, you're introducing a large amount of entropy to the map, which does what? It does add a ton of pack size and a ton of rewards, but also makes it super rippy. Like, it's, you know, not that you can't die, but if you're proccing an Abyss, fighting a Breach Lord, and doing a Breach at the same time, then a Harbinger, then you have Alter, like, you can only do so much damage to one sector of the map at the same time. It's not like you can... I mean, explosions only go so far. Like, you will die eventually to, like... You hit, like, there's 6 different flame bloods falling out. I mean, eventually, you're introducing so much shit, it'll catch up to you. So, like, the deaths I've had, for example, this week have been, like, I died to, like, an Ice Nova... strongbox that rolled with 5 levels, which scales up to Ice Nova damage, and it rolled with a curse, and that curse put on Frostbite, which was the only res I could have gotten below negative. So it's like these scenarios, it's like, oh yeah, but that's a 1 in a million. Yeah, but if you're rolling the dice every 2 seconds, you do hit those 1 in a millions. Like, I got punched by a ghosted Zoff that spawned in a breach and one-shot me. Like, these things do happen. So the level of entropy and chaos you introduce in these maps do have tons of rewards you can sustain, but it comes with a price. Like, you're gonna... I mean, it's like when I was running the fucking Ghosted Exile thing. Like, it's super fun and super rewarding, but some of these things are, like, insane, and they'll just one-shot you across the maps. So it's all part of it. Like, you're paying the price.
I mean, I've heard people say that there's too much juice, and they actually don't like it. They don't like that the maps are, like, so dense, and there's so many mechanics.
It gets overwhelmed. It gets a little crazy. But that's a great... I think that just goes to show how great the system is currently. Where it's like, maybe you're like, oh, I better pump the brakes. I'm getting a little too excited over here, you know? Like, yeah,
I agree.
Could you start dying? And then it's like, well, now all the juice I'm introducing is actually, like, problematic, because now I'm losing experience, even though I should be gaining experience.
I mean, you're not forced to run it, right? You can just take different passives and have use less scarabs, use less sextons. Like, you don't have to use any of it.
You don't have to, but we've never been given so many fun treats, you know? It's just...
Yeah, that's why I like it. I'm just saying, I don't agree with people saying, you know, this is too much, they should nerf this because it's not fun to have. Like, I don't understand that take at all.
I don't think it's going to be nerfed. Again, like, I think I'm being too greedy, and I think it shouldn't be nerfed, and I should just be, like, it's doing exactly what it is designed to do.
It's fine.
I'm digging too deep, and I'm getting punished. But do I feel like they're going to nerf it because they tend to nerf things based off of the top scenario? Like, yeah, I think they're probably going to. I don't think they should, but I think they're going to.
Yeah, I really hope they would not. I think that's why most people really praise the expansion. Like, majority, like, let's say 90% of people I heard always say it's amazing. Like, it feels nice to have agency and have resources that you can farm yourself, don't have to buy from trade side, right, to sustain your own juice, right? So I
feels
really
like the most impactful expansion, in my opinion, probably ever, even more so than when Echoes was first introduced. Because
I agree with that.
I think it was done because for Friday, I think it was done the best. I think it feels the best. I think it has the most entry level, like, we all felt like day one where it's like, oh, I could pick up essence day one, and now I'm getting essences all the time, and now this is great. Like, that feels really good, and you can see tangible results minute one of mapping.
Yeah, you're making decisions, and they pay off, right? They're very noticeable.
The penalty for changing tree is not bad at all. Like, I've changed trees week to week, and it's negligible.
Daily sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Like, but it's so good. It's so good.
I eat orbs or making for breakfast, dinner, and supper. Pretty much, it's so many changes.
I've been turning fusing into chance to make scours for regrets from makings because I'm swapping trees so frequently. The depths in which I'm going, yeah.
But that's the thing; it doesn't feel bad. Like, it really doesn't feel bad.
It feels
it rewards
worth it,
you in such a nice way.
I mean, it's. I'm hemorrhaging currency and I'm enjoying it. Like, it's a rare scenario. I think this is like a real super hit, the entire Atlas tree, and they could leave it literally as it. I mean, the only thing I would like to see maybe is they could even add some stuff. Like, they can add some underrepresented mechanics, like add Tempest, add Bloodlines. Like, just, I'm more than happy to see other things.
Archnemesis.
Or Ultimatum.
Yeah, they could have an entire Ultimatum wheel. Like, there's so much room. I mean, if I zoom out in my tree, there's a lot of black space on the sides. Just fill it up.
I thought it was really cool that they added a couple wheels that I didn't really expect, because they didn't have representation in the old Atlas, like the rare monsters or like map bosses.
Yep.
Shrines, I guess. Did we have shrines in the old Atlas? We didn't, right?
No,
we didn't. No.
I mean, there's a lot of cool things.
Alluring Valsat areas, the upgraded lab
trials.
Oh
yeah. I had those on for a while for the love of the queen, that section, because I was like, I need to do Uber Elder, and this was like, well, Uber Adzirian. This was the best way to get mortal fragments. Like, so it's really good. It's perfect. I could forgive them.
What do you think about? Or it's probably on your list. Maybe I should let you continue. I was going to mention Kirac.
Ruin everything. Kirac. So, Kirac, to me, I'm not sure what his intended purpose is, but I can tell you what I use it for.
Harvest. Let me guess.
It's not even harvest. It's actually farming fragments for Shaper Guardians, Elder Guardians, and Cirrus Guardians, because it's the only thing. So every other value that Kirac offers is better if you do it outside of Kirac. Right, so Expedition, Harvest, none of Kirac isn't affected by the Atlas tree.
It's the same for Guardians, because you can witness them if you do them in your own map.
Yeah, but it's not the same for the Cirrus Conquerors. Cirrus Conqueror,
you can witness them too.
You could witness them, but that's predicated on the fact that I have the invitation, and I don't have. I was running low on invitations, and I was missing specific ones. Like, I had like 5 of everything, but no El means. So I was re-rolling Kirac's just to farm El means. Because there's no way to if it was horizonable, like whatever, it would be no problem. But if you're blowing through bosses, it's just a free form of fragments that you could access. Like, its value is intrinsically quite high, because a fragment from a boss and a fragment from Kirac is this exact same thing. But a harvest from Kirac and a harvest with your entire Atlas juiced is not the same thing. I mean, it's still free. Like, harvest is probably the best thing, the best freebie that still feels good without it. Like, if I do an expedition that's not on the Atlas tree, it feels like shit because I don't have all the expedition stuff. But if I do a harvest from Kirac, it still feels pretty good because it's still a harvest.
The big difference is that expedition scarabs exist, but harvest scarabs don't.
Correct.
Right?
There's no way to force harvest. Yeah.
So Kirac gives you like a worse version of anything, and some of the things they can't be accessed any other way, so it's still good. Like, it's still the only way I can force like 20 harvests in 1 hour by just spamming Kirac missions, or I can force like 20 smugglers caches really quickly.
Yep, that was another one. And unique strong boxes was I was trying to get a red blade banner just to see if I could get one, and I did hit the red blade box like 3 times. I just didn't hit banner, but it was probably like 1 in 4 unique strong boxes from Kirac was a warbands one, and then of course I'd have to roll the 1 in 4 from there. But like I was seeing a frequent amount of. And it didn't matter what tier also. Like that's one of the nicer things about the rerolls from Kirac is like there's certain things that obviously you want to have harvest in the red map section of Kirac. But for things like the unique strongbox one, it doesn't matter really what section it's in. It's just like if you're looking for red blue banner, which is quite coveted still at the moment, it doesn't matter what section of Kirac you get it in. As long as you hit that strongbox thing, it can be like red blade banner. Or lab trials, I guess technically is also if you somehow didn't have lab things.
I really think that implementation of Kirac was spot on. There's a lot of people that think Kirac is kind of useless. Maybe they don't see the benefits of it, but I'm really happy with
in solo self-found. There's a node on the tree. There's a couple Kirac nodes. I think that the only one I ever keep on is the commissioned officer node, which is the one little notable beneath the map wheel that I just put 1 point in for an extra Kirac mission a day, and then missions upon completion. That I just kept on the entire league, and I basically did the math, and it's like, well, what I want to allocate, like if you want to argue it, like, is this worth it for the entire league? Would I want to put 1 point in to get what would be 90 Kirac missions over the course of the league guaranteed, because 1 for each day, and then also the 3% chance per completion per map. Well, how many maps am I going to run league? 5,000, 10,000? So how many Kirac missions?
I just see it as a 3% chance to get a harvest.
Pretty much,
on top of the harvest node. So.
Yeah, but there's one node called Planner Tactician on the tree, which has the 20% chance for when a scouting report does drop, it drops as a comprehensive scouting report. And a comprehensive scouting report does something really specific. And it's like I don't think it's very insane, because what it does is it like doubles the amount of maps you get, or even triples them, but it has a very, very high chance of giving you Doriani's Machinarium and Cortex. Much higher than anything else. So if you were farming, if you really wanted a Bottled Faith, or you really needed like specific boots from Doriani's Machinarium, or you just want to do it for your Atlas, like for your percentage thing, to get your 117, it's like almost, I did like 10 of them, and 8 of them had Machinariums and Cortexes in them. So it's like extremely common, and I've heard similar tales from other people.
Yeah, it's really good to also look for the things that you're looking for in Kirac, right?
Yeah.
Because you get 16 options per every single tier of the Kirac, right? So I was using those to like force harvest, for example, because you get so many options. So at least that's what I was looking for.
Did anybody hit with the stack of div cards?
No, I've tried it like maybe 20 times.
I've done it so many times, and I've even had it on burial chain. So there's a Kirac thing that says when you do the map, it's going to drop a stack of div cards, and it'll pull a div card from that map's pool, but it's definitely heavily weighted, and it can also just hit Gambler always, which is annoying. But you'll just get a full stack, and 9 times out of 10, your filter is going to fucking hide it, because it's going to be some.
Oh, you mean 99 out of 100?
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of Flora's gifts and all that stuff. But you could get a headhunter.
Not bad for chains that bind, for like dungeon and cage map. That's supposedly like decent chance to get a 16.
Yeah, but if you're running a dungeon map, your opinion should be stricken from the book anyway.
Wait, I farmed dungeon on Leaguestead.
You disgust me.
Day 1 map to get my first 6-ling. It was awesome. I was a true dungeon master.
You're a dungeon master?
Yeah, he's a dungeon master.
Oh boy. I actually just realized something, that on top of the Kirac mission thing, there's a very small head of Kirac hiding. If you look on, let me post this picture in Discord.
He's hiding.
If you look above where it says Kirac mission on his thing, there's a tiny little Kirac head up top. Little baby Kirac head. You see it on the thing?
Oh yeah, it is.
It's a little tiny Kirac head with an eye patch. Man, what a great Easter egg. Shelby's giving me lunch and coffee. This is great. Well, she's not giving. She said she'd get it for me, so which means I'll probably never receive it. But yes, Kirac is pretty nice. Of the nodes on tree, I guess we could go into the next part. What's your favorite Atlas passive node? And which one have you been most impressed with, or stuff like that? And for me, it's pretty much exactly what I thought it would be, which is I keep the I've had the synthesis nodes on since the second I reached them. I've never taken them off, and I still enjoy nothing more than running synth maps all day long if I could. Despite most of the bases being absolute shit, it feels great. And then intelligence gathering to me is like still just super fucking strong of a node on the tree, which is the 10 intelligence for random safe houses. Like that node.
I don't like that one at all.
Well, you're wrong. It's so good.
Definitely accomplished match for me. Like I think it's okay for
Heathens
XP, but that's about it.
Heathens, all of you.
Yeah, I would do it for like 100 grind. That's about it.
Yeah, I love it. It sparks joy. Listen, you don't understand. You know how many paradoxes I've gotten? One. But I've done so many safe houses. But I did hit a really good. I did hit the ideal paradoxica, which is like the pen with the attack speed one. Finally, but I'm not even using it. It's just rotting in my stash. But I do like intelligence gathering. Aside from that, I mean, I'm trying to think which ones do I really, really love.
I mean, I feel like pretty much there's almost no node that is not useful sometimes, right? They all have their niches. Like
what about
even
the lab
mechanics
nodes
that are kind of bad. I was actually going to say the lab nodes are way better than I expected.
What are
Those
they?
are the ones I was surprised.
Which
about.
one? What do they do?
So, well, the small nodes just give you a higher chance to get a trial, but then there's a 20% trial, 20% chance that your trial will be an improved trial that drops one of the upgrade offerings, right? Gift, tribute, or dedication. And the good thing is, you will know beforehand which offering it will drop.
Really?
So
I didn't know.
You're running your map, and it says drops improved lab offering trial. Sorry, a trial that drops an improved offering. I think that's what it says.
Yep.
So you don't even enter it if it's not improved. And I don't know if I got insanely lucky on it or something, but I feel like I feel like they're equally weighted. So I get tons of Gift of the Goddess from there.
That's tempting.
I was very, very positively surprised by that note, because I remember talking about that note in our pre-league podcast.
Yeah.
As the note that is probably the biggest meme out of the entire Atlas.
Well, we didn't know it said it, but if it says it beforehand, that's a pretty big quality of life.
Yeah, for sure. It would not be worth
probably
running.
say
if you were running it and you had to find out after you collected, that'd just be sad. Yeah, it's a bummer, man. That'd be a bummer. The one, what else do I really like? I do like the Abyss Jewels dropping corrupted with the 5 or 6 mods. I haven't hit anything amazing, but
to be honest, have you been doing it with like normal Abyss Scarabs, or have you been doing the Archnemesis recipe for it?
Just Abyss Scarabs. I've just been running like 3 Abysses per each map.
I feel like you don't get many jewels that way, do you?
No, well, it's 2 per box, so it averages 1 per map at least.
Okay, because I had that node clicked and did like 2 or 3 runs with Corruptor plus Treant Horde Archnemesis, and each of them each map would drop like 30, 40 jewels or something, and then there would be a couple 6 more jewels in there. But
so you just got the Abyss stuff without doing the Abyss stuff.
Exactly.
Now that's never happened in Path before.
We did Abyss stuff, right? Like Archnemesis Abyss.
Sure.
That's technically Abyss.
That's like the thing we always mention though, is like, not that it feels bad, but it always just kind of feels bad where it's like, the best way to get the thing from this mechanic is to not do this mechanic. It's just always the fucking case, man.
Yeah, best example for me in this league was getting Shroud of the Lightless through div cards, because why not?
Yeah, it's true.
The usual.
Easy.
It is true.
But yeah, for me, I think the favorite node is still hands down the Shadow of Hunger, the increased chance to get altars. I mean, it's mostly for the power and how it elevates the maps, but yeah, just favorite to use it. But I think I'm the most surprised by the Strongbox nodes and by the secret operation, which is the 6% chance to get operative Strongbox.
I have that on. That's the only Strongbox nodes I have on, but I leave it on, and I just put an ambush scarabs on. And it's like surprisingly how frequent I get operative strongboxes, but I'm not crafting. I'll if I have engineer robes, I'll put them on and I'll alch it. And I mean, I'll get like maybe 10 whatever. I've never hit like the winged one or anything like that. They've never been like super impressive, but it definitely is way better than a normal strongbox.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, usually you would prefer to have full ambush package to run scarabs. I would say, but overall, it was such a meme when they revealed the the Xana mods, or the Kirac mods, sorry, right
Yeah.
now. And we thought they were totally garbage, like really, really bad. Now they're gonna be good. And then we got so surprised with the Forge Favors the Brave, and especially Ambush.
Yeah.
I was always happy when I spent 4Ks for Ambush, and literally never disappointed. So I really like them.
I just don't like Ice Nova.
Agree.
Ice Nova scares me. It hits so much harder than like anything else from like similar mechanics. Like there's just, I feel like every couple of mechanics have one thing that just is hitting like a fucking truck. Like Ice Nova just is so much more lethal than anything else that Strongbox can do.
I think I died to Strongboxes the most out of all the things this league myself. Yeah. So on the
DD.
winter,
I haven't done DD yet. I haven't died to that yet.
I died multiple times to DD on my Poisonous Concoction character and to the Ice Nova on Winter Herb. So each to his own. But yeah, it's been really rippy. I still enjoy them.
There's
I was just surprised how rewarding the operative boxes are, because they drop a lot of map rolling currency too, like sextants and unmakings and chisels. And then when you have the node that doubles currency from any box, it also doubles those. So I had Strongboxers drop like 16 orbs of unmaking in one stack and stuff like that. It was surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I was surprised by Strongbox nodes too. I didn't really value them beforehand, but definitely paid off.
One thing I really love, so you mentioned chisels, and I've never used to really run out of chisels, but this league I am at times running out. I get like low, but that's why I just run a synth map, and if you hit that fucking quality thing, you just leave with 400 chisels. It's like one of the most rewarding experiences. That's still my favorite thing to do, I think, in Path at the moment. It has been for a while. Even better now, because they actually doubled the drop rate of the synthesis items. But just running a synth map and just looking through all the synth items is still because there's just such a wide variety of them. And there's obviously the jackpot ones, but like I have hit a lot. Like, even this league, I hit an 18% int belt and a 7% int ring. So I've it's been working, but it just feels fun.
The most disgusting jackpots this league in synth. I hit +1 arrow bow on a very good base, and what else? Obviously, I hit all the belts.
I've gotten LE weak. I've gotten LE weak ring. I've gotten crit multi quiver, minimum power charge on 3 different fucking shields.
Oh yeah, I hit element avoidance on the shield and minimum +2 minimum frenzy charge.
I hit one that I didn't. I totally missed on shields, but I hit 350 flat accuracy on a shield, which I didn't even know existed. But that's a lot of accuracy as an implicit on a shield. Which I kind of like that one. And Fizz and multi-ring.
Especially with Omni, you need.
Yep. Yeah, the Omni.
Accuracy.
Omni cost is quite draining. Yeah, I was hoping for an explosion wand, though. Didn't get that yet.
Unlucky. But that's the thing about this passive tree. It's just so much choice, and everything is really enticing. And you just do what you want. And I'm really surprised, because I was really negative at first when it was revealed.
You're such a negative,
I wasn't
negative man.
Yeah, that's kind of true. But I wasn't insanely hyped by the tree reveal. But after playing with it for 2 weeks or like a month now, I couldn't be more happy. It's amazing.
Well, now it's like, we were shown the toy. We're like, yeah, that toy's okay. And then now we have the toy. I'm like, oh, this toy's amazing. And now in a month we're going to be like, don't take our toy. So hopefully they don't ruin too much about it.
I think that the reason this Atlas feels so fun is because there's so much variety. In the past there was just endgame mapping, right? It was like one activity. But now you can change your Atlas around to infinite combinations of league mechanics, and it feels so different when you run, say running Beyond, Breach, Legion maps. They feel so different than running, I don't know, Heist plus Strongbox node and just running through and opening things, right? It feels like completely different gameplay, really. So you can
there's new world,
multiple different types of mapping that you can swap in between to keep the game fresh. It's awesome.
It is. Let's do a couple of Q&A questions, because we have a cajillion. I fucked up. I timed out my Q&A thing. Okay. A lot of these questions are really fucking stupid.
That's fine.
Yeah. What's the worst thing about the new expansion?
Rasping vines.
if we could attribute that to the expansion,
the red influence,
then yes. Just the I would say not just the red influence. I think it's just the gap between the red and the blue one as far as its enjoyment of running for me is the biggest one.
So the Infinite Hunger mini boss, sludge face,
poop dick. It's my new waifu. I love him. If I can get I know they just opened up a merch store. If I can get a body pillow of him, that'd be like.
He is cute.
Have you seen his little butt? He's got a cute little butt too. Very not proportionate to the rest of his body.
Really? I didn't pay attention to his butt.
I think it's because you're more of a tits man. That's the problem. The worst thing about this expansion is they're gonna nerf it next week. That's the worst thing. That's the worst thing about the expansion. One thing
I kind of feel the same. There's almost nothing bad that I can say about the expansion really. So it's just anticipation for the nerf.
One of the tinfoil predictions I have. I say tinfoil as if it's not what everyone's thinking. So the Forbidden Jewels were more common than I expected. I was expecting a 1 to 2% drop rate, and it's like a 5 to 8% drop rate if you have the nodes in. So there's 4 times the drop rate expecting, and they're much more prevalent. It's very hard to look at even anyone's build in Trade League and not see them running some combination of Forbidden Jewels.
True.
Because of that, I'm even more of the opinion, which is what I had previously, that I'm even more sure that next patch, if not next or the following one, will be a massive Ascendancy nerf across the board. And I expect to see certain Ascendancies.
Oh, no.
Quote me, mark it, timestamp it. I bet you so many Ascendancies get absolutely gutted in a variety of ways, and then they're gonna like buff Trickster slightly. Like they'll make Trickster have 5% chaos damage more.
What if Trickster are gonna be the best Ascendancy in the game?
That's the
100% chance that's gonna be the case at some point. They mix around balance so much.
You say that, but I think that Witch has been the strongest class. I think Witch has been the strongest class for like 3 years in a row.
Like, I haven't played a Witch in like 3 years. What do you mean?
That's because you play shit
Witch
builds.
Sucks.
Ranger is definitely the best.
I think Witch or Ranger. Yeah, those are the two ones that are super spicy.
They tend to be on the top of the balance more often than not. That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, worst expansion. I don't think there's anything bad about it. Actually, this is a fun segue. The next question is: this is the second league in a row with Trickster with a sub 0.3% play rate. What changes would need to be made to give the spec a acceptable play rate / viability? So
that's probably like infinite possibilities. They have to find one that is fun and fits into the theme of Trickster, right?
Well, it's traditional.
What is supposed to be the niche of Trickster anyway?
So if you look at what it does, it has dot, it has charges, and it has movement skill things. It's kind of has a
channeling.
The thing is, it has a really weird identity. I mean, the things that it does good feel really nice, and there's just not enough of them to make it worthwhile. So like 3% everything on kill and 50% recovery feels nice. That's nice. Like that's what old Cinder Swallow does. Is it 2 points nice? Well, let's compare it to something else. Compare it to something like Deadeye. You have Chain for 2 points. Could you say the value of 3% on kill everything is the same as having Chain? Maybe. I mean, you could argue that. That's how you kind of have to compare and contrast some of these things. So what else does Trickster have? Well, movement skills are free, and then you get some sort of recovery thing. What's the value of that versus the value of something else? Another sense for 2 points, right? Or I have that, or I have a Profane Bloom. Movement skills cost a mana, or I could just put Life Tap in my movement skill, and that's not an option. So if one support gem negates the vast majority of those 2 Ascendancy points, that kind of feels shit. Even other things are like Swift Killer. This is probably one of the better ones, I would say, which is Frenzy and Power go to 4 max, and then you gain on kill, you gain damage per each, and you also gain them while channeling. So it's a great way of uptiming them. If you're playing a channeling build, that's fine. It's free max charges of each. But let's compare it to some other Ascendancy. You have Hierophant just has 4 of each. 4 of each charge always. No prerequisite, no nonsense. So why don't they if you just have Swift Killer give you 4 Frenzy and Power, would that be too strong compared to Hierophant? Maybe, probably not comparatively, but it would definitely be a lot more juicy. If I had a build that just that's 4 free power charges and 4 free Frenzy charges, I might actually want to pick that up. One has a conditional thing, one doesn't,
The thing about Trickster is it was so widely played before because it gave you a lot of defense. Mm-hmm. And usually defensive ascendancies are the most OP one. Let's say champions, even ranger. Like people play a lot of Deadeye currently because it's quite of like utility base and it has a lot of defensiveness on top of it as well.
Defenses,
so,
modality changes, and utility. Like those are the big ones.
And Trickster had that. Trickster had everything in that freaking ballpark, right? Like you had stun immunity, you had dodge, you had evasion, ES. Your escape artist was pretty broken, and like and movement speed as well. So Trickster had that all, and it's been taken away from it. And instead we have, Heartstopper.
Yeah, I don't even know what they would have to harness. The Void could be the least used Ascendancy node in all of Ascendancy history, because it's one of those things where it's such a cool concept. Like the dice roll mechanic has existed through a lot of games, where it's like we roll a dice, and then if you hit a 1, it's like a shit result that's like negligibly worthwhile. If you hit a 6, you gain like 300% of your damage for 5 seconds. Like there's some mechanic like that. That's all Harness the Void is. It's just a dice roll mechanic, which is like the 70% chance to gain 100% of non-chaos with hits as chaos. Like that's massive amounts of damage, right? But it just never numerically adds up to being ever worthwhile when you average it out. So it just never gets picked.
It's just really unfortunate how Trickster ended up, like from all the niches and all the defensiveness removed, and then just not good enough compared to everything. So I think what it needs to happen is just give it a bit of defensive buff, and
I think it could
a lot of people would
suppression. They could build suppression of the Trickster.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, to be honest, because it feels to like
thematic or
fits
something
into the theme of the Trickster, right? Well, and it's only Raider that has it right now.
If it lost Ghost Dance and they put it on a Keystone, which is like a slap in the face of Trickster. Yeah. So if you want to, like, what else could Trickster adopt that it has? Well, it has. If you want to give it the charge on Killer Channel Route, just give it all the charges. Like, I don't think it'd even be, if you just basically give it overcharge. Like, think of the value of what it does and equate it to passive points on tree that already exist. It's basically giving you overcharge, but worse. Like, it adds the channeling aspect, sure, but it's giving, like, would I rather have 4 frenzy and 4 power? Would I have 3 of every charge? Like, it's like a question that some people would probably flip flop on, or like you can give it Ghost Reaver built in, or there's like a lot of things you can do to just make, or give it like Wither effect, like, or something. There's tons of things that are thematic towards what I would imagine a Trickster is. That is hard. I think almost like thematically the problem is bigger. That I think you have Saboteur, Trickster, and Assassin. I think that if you look at the diversity of other classes, like the Assassin and the Trickster are very similar thematically. They're both cloaked characters holding daggers, and I begs the question, like, what is one doing versus the other? What is a Trickster doing in the world of Ray class versus an Assassin? Like, an Assassin is wearing a cloak and he's killing people with his dagger and his throwing weapons. And you look at Trickster, it's the exact same dude, just with it not a mask on. It's like, well, okay, is he just a shit assassin? Is he just emotionally supporting people with his cloak and dagger? Like, what is his theme?
You should get a haggling bonus on 2 he's a Trickster.
But like, there's so many mechanics they've added that he could have, like suppression, wither effect, elusive. Like, he has none of these things.
Trickster had dodge before, like it had spell dodge, so it would just make perfect sense, to be honest, at the moment.
Well, it used to be like the evasion hybrid class, right?
Yep.
And it doesn't have any of that anymore.
They could give it
dodge anymore either, because it doesn't exist.
They could give it like one of those things where it's like 3% of evasion is added as ES. Like, they can give it juicy things, or leech goes to whatever.
Do something about it.
I'm sure
at some point.
I'm sure too.
Maybe not next league, maybe not in 2 leagues, but
maybe not this game. Maybe the next game.
It's definitely on the list. It's on their long list of things they want to change and rework.
It's a real copium. Okay.
That's just how it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Next question was, Prophecy being removed opens the door to new systems to replace. What thematic system do you think would benefit from this concept, but redesigned? For instance, some kind of deterministically farmable chase item. Oh, what the fuck is this wording in this question? I think they're asking what could replace Prophecy, or what?
There could be some kind of cool, like, side quest kind of system, right? Kind of like Prophecy used to be, where you're like slowly working towards some great prophecy that will fulfill at some point with a big reward. but you probably need more agency in what you will do and get, because just having like these 10 different prophecy chains that existed was pretty boring.
Yeah.
Once you did them once, maybe there could be like a dynamic one where it says like, I don't know, do certain maps or kill certain monsters or something to progress this, and then just keep doing these like little side quests.
Do you know what you're describing? Honestly, what you're describing is a battle pass for most other games, or a season pass.
Yeah, kind of.
But it's unfortunate that we have some.
Obviously in game though, not with MTX.
Yeah, but that's pretty much what you're describing. Is a lot of games have season passes or battle passes where it's like kill 50 of this boss, kill. I mean, that's what our challenge system is, but just fractured. It really just goes to show that the battle pass implementation should have just been built in the challenge system or something. It was such a weird thing.
What if you could talk to Navali and she offers you like a couple items? Like maybe there's a headhunter in there, and you have to start the headhunter like prophecy chain, and it's randomly generated out of like doing like these 100 side quests or something that you gotta do. You work on that for like a week, and then, or maybe it's not header, maybe it's just something lower tier, obviously.
Oh, Aegis Aurora, or Prism Guardian, whatever. Yeah.
Could be like a stack of 5x or something. You gotta work through some.
It's like go kill Uber Elder with like Heavy Strike or something. It could be. There's so many things.
It could be like kill Uber Elder, or like kill an Elder Guardian with AoE on it or something. Like I don't know, stuff like that. Like kind of like side missions.
You mentioned it because they actually have the defeat the bosses in style challenge, which I think is a perfect implementation of what you're saying, where it's like the Searing Exarch without being hit by a meteor, or defeat the Eater Worlds with chilled ground on. Like there's tons of constraint-based things they could do to implement.
I feel like there's definitely situations where people, they don't really know what to do, right? Because PoE is like a sandbox kind of game.
Yeah.
And you have to find your own goals. If you had this kind of like
direction quest
system to guide you, you would know exactly what to do. You just look up your prophecy window, your newer prophecy window, and it says, defeat the Forge of the Phoenix, and then you go and do the Forge of the Phoenix.
Well, a lot of people now just have like, so it's like there's three or four big things. So it's like, all right, I want to get 117 at 117. I want to get my 4 void stones, and I want to fill up my favorite slots. And I do that, and it's like, okay, so what else does it do? I could do my challenges, and then after that, it's like, well, I don't really care about the MTXs, so the challenges don't really do anything for me. So what do I want that can actually help my character? That's where what you're saying, I think, would come in really well. It's like, all right,
like basically challenges, but randomly generated forever. And they give you in-game rewards, like currency or unique items or something.
That could be even more meme, and they could just give you Gwen rerolls. You can just
I mean, ideally you choose what you get. Maybe you have like, it could be like a ritual kind of window, and you click on one item, and then it starts a chain for that or something. I don't know.
I can't wait to see this implemented in 3 years.
Yeah.
PoE 7.
I'm gonna be asking for royalties.
Good, you should. This next question just says PP poo poo a bunch. That's a good one.
I agree.
If you could delete one unique from a fellow unique boy stash to fuck with them, which one would you delete and why? I would take.
Okay, Manni.
I would take
my Tripanon alone, please.
Replica Tripanon.
I was gonna say Legi's incursion shield, because he just got his the
take away
authentic one. Jewel. Oh no, that's really brutal. Because that's like
that's really evil, man.
Yeah. There's not much worse than that.
Good luck
that might be the worst thing. If you had to get a new unique, because the question I often get, what's the hardest unique game to get? And it's like Replica, Bated Breath, ethically is the obvious answer as far as time probably. But getting the Mastery Jewels, the Emperor Jewels.
I think the Mastery is now the number one, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. No questions asked, I think. Maybe even Unit as well. It's easier, but like Mastery is not even close.
Yeah, it's top 10. Like Stasis as well.
The thing is, like, doing Stasis Prison and then doing Ulnatals, it feels, it's obviously extremely arduous journey, and it could take you 1,000 of each to get it, just because the drop rates are not great. But at least on the way, you're getting stuff. Like,
yeah, exactly.
On the way of doing,
you do anyway.
On the way of doing, I mean, you'd be doing, I'm assuming Tribute of the Goddess, because the Tribute of the Goddess is increased drop rate for all lab uniques, like vastly from silver chests. And I don't know if it's good. We have no idea if it affects the Emperor one's mastery. But if it doesn't, that's sad. If it does, like, farming labs and farming offerings is just, there is no fun there, I don't think, really. That's just depressing.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Literally the worst. It's not much worse than that.
What else would be really bad?
If I had an Actum, it would be that. That'd be the one thing
yeah.
I wouldn't want to lose.
I still don't have one either.
Well,
I mean, I guess the tier 1 replicas like Headhunter are probably top 10 as well in terms of hardest to get.
But to be, it's just one of those things where at least you're like doing something, or you can get other things.
Yeah.
Like the tangential progress is not terrible.
I mean, imagine if you're down to just replica Headhunter and all you're heisting for is that. That's so miserable.
Well, not too far off. I still haven't gotten a Forbidden Jewel yet off these bosses.
Oh damn. Shouldn't be too hard though, right?
I'm on my 22nd kill.
If you don't get it this league, you're gonna get it next league, because that's content you're gonna do every league for the next 2 years anyway.
The worst part is I'm doing obviously the blue side, so once I get that, I have to swap sides. I'm stuck on the red land for a while.
Oh, that actually, we're not talking about Atlas anymore, I guess. But what do you guys think about the boss rushing strat, and do you think that's gonna get nerfed and nuked? You know, the run to the map boss and guarantee your map sustain from connected map nodes.
I don't
think
really,
that's gonna stay in the game.
I have no idea what you're talking about, to be honest. I haven't been doing that at all.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't had issues sustaining maps.
Well, that's why I haven't found a Forbidden Jewel yet, because you can farm like 5 or 10 in a day doing that.
Oh, I still do 3 rewards a day. I'm just doing strands. Like,
I mean, you can do either every 20 minutes, or like that's like every 15, depending on how fast you can do it.
yeah, but that's like speeding up to a stoplight. I'm good.
Yeah, I know that you're taking your time.
I just don't like boss rushing as a concept. To me is just strange, and it's kind of an extension of like the whole every unopened chest has a mirror type thing. It's like to waste maps like that.
You don't waste maps at all. That's the thing.
Are you full clearing the map?
No. This league you can sustain them, because you know how you can pick up these nodes to give you 2% chance to drop a connected map. Yeah. Also like the small nodes in the Atlas tree, right? When you pick up all of them, they actually have a guaranteed map drop from every map boss, and it's always a connected map.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only like each map has like what 3 or 4 connected maps, and those it's one of those, but it respects your favorite slots. So if you have like 2 connected maps like Cove Cemetery and you favorite each of them a bunch of times, pretty much every single Coves you do drops a cemetery and vice versa. And all you do is run to the map boss, collect all these juicy boss rewards, you know, like Shaper, Elder Guardian, Conqueror maps, Synthesis maps, Master missions, progress towards the Exarch and Eater.
Yep.
And it doesn't cost you anything. So you get your investment back. That's the whole point. It wasn't
what I'm more saying
possible before this
is that if I walk into the coves and I'm running to the map boss, and now I see a harvest, I'm going to stop to do the harvest. If I see an abyss, I'm going to stop to do the abyss. And if I don't see them, I'm assuming the other side of the map has that. And now I feel like I'm losing out on that.
I think you shouldn't look at PoE like that. I think maybe not you shouldn't be looking at PoE like that, but it's a flawed way of thinking about PoE nowadays, in my opinion, because there is so much in our maps that we have to choose and have to really specialize what we do, and that boss rushing strat gives you exactly what you want, which is boss drops, synthesis maps, and fast exarch. So this is like the best way. So you just disregard everything else and then do something else later on.
And you also don't roll your maps, obviously. You just
you can just run them wide.
So it would be, I'd have to favorite coves and then cemetery equal times each, and then pick up every single one of the adjacent map drop chance nodes.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even need all of them, because there's also the chance to duplicate maps, right?
Yeah.
Which you'll have a bunch of, and maybe you kill some mobs on the way and they sometimes drop a map, so
your tree looks like a giant fat blob at the bottom full of connected
pretty much
wheels.
Just take all the travel nodes. Yeah, it's a really odd tree. And I really think it's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna stay in the game. It's probably one of the most broken things this league. Like, maybe not how powerful it is, but how unintended it is. Because they shifted so much rewards of our gameplay into killing the map boss, right?
And you would pick up things like Fated Conflict, like map bosses have a chance to drop an additional unique or whatever.
If you want that.
If you want it, yeah.
You spend like half your tree picking up the nodes to sustain your maps, and the other half of your points you can spend for whatever payoff you want. Like, I've been doing it for Alva missions, for example, so I've been picking up all of these. You can pick up, Shaper Elder if you want those. You can pick up a lot of different things. You can even pick up something like chance for harvest to smuggler's cache, because you're still running through like half the map, right? You still see them somewhat often.
Well, I'm thinking also the synth map drops must be more.
I've seen people said they drop like 8 cortexes in one day or something when they do this for like 10 hours.
Map bosses have a chance to. Map bosses have 20% chance to be duplicated if possible. That's enriched entities.
Yeah, that doesn't actually do anything. It just makes the map twinned, like the twinned map mod, and the boss drops
it gives
like
you
the
a
Guardians
basic additional currency item. That should still work though. And the rarity of boss drops.
That's okay.
If I farm
it, gonna make a tree really fast too, so you can pull it up on the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, boss rushing isn't new, right? We've been doing this in the past, and we had like if you had like a tab of city squares to burn, you would just run to the boss and get some Guardian maps or whatever.
Yeah.
The new thing is that you can now sustain this forever, and you can in BPL, the private league that I played a week or two ago. I literally did this like 12 hours into the league, pretty much. Maybe not with Cemetery Coves, because you need Void Stones for that. But as soon as I was into 16 maps, I pretty much was doing that, and it's really broken. Like when you get a guaranteed map return from the boss, like the whole game changes, right? You don't have to worry about map sustain anymore.
Yeah.
It's like playing Last Epoch. You know, the new content will always be there after you're done.
The superior game. Coves Cemetery, interesting. So Legi makes.
I feel like we should have mentioned it because it was.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah, he's making a tree that I'm going to pull up on stream. While he does that, we'll do another question from the Q&A. When picking builds to push to endgame, how should you consider balancing offense versus defense? If you don't die, then that's enough defense.
Usually the way I approach this is, for a league starter, I focus on, will I have enough damage to clear the content fast? And when I have later on in the league, when I have a good character, with gear, my first priority is to make it tanky enough to not die pretty much ever, and then scale the damage with gear. So
suppression, high armor, chaos res, corrupting blood immunity, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. For a league start, it's usually the more efficient way, at least. Maybe it's not fun, but the more efficient way is to focus on damage.
Yeah.
And use your 6 portals if you have to, but you don't want to be stuck because it takes you 2 minutes to kill a map boss. I'd rather die twice and kill the map boss in 10 seconds anyway.
Yes. So I have a tree here. Oh, fucking thing. Got a tree here that Legi just tossed together.
Yeah, you should show this one. But yeah, like this one has essence on it, for example, because essence really works well with it.
It's a different one. It's set 2 trees. It's sabotaged. Okay, so this one, so you're saying essence, and he picked up also the reward stuff. So there's the chance to get the Kiracs, the Alvas, the Junes per completion, and then pretty much it almost looks like it hasn't loaded fully in my browser because there's so many little small nodes. And then essence, and then the synth stuff, the conqueror stuff, and then the Shaper Elder stuff. So there's all the things that based off of you killing bosses. And there's 28 points left, so if you did fill it out, you could always pick up the little meme things like Fated Conflict for the drop.
Exactly, you have the modality of the
pick whatever payoff you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or even you could pick up Rogue Metamorph for 3 points.
I mean, when I was doing that for a bit, I picked up Harvest and Heist.
Mm-hmm.
So because you just kill so many bosses and put it in so many maps, you have a higher chance to kill something that doesn't take time to interact with.
Yep.
Which is, let's say, Smuggler's Cache or the Bounty Pack, and you get a big payoff. So that's one of the payoffs that you can choose between.
Choose your own adventure.
But yeah, I think same as Manni.
Guys.
Yeah, same as Manni. I think it should be probably nerfed because it's just.
I don't think GG hates this. I think everyone who's in charge of balancing GG is probably furious about this thread existing. I think they don't like this at all. I believe you're not supposed to ignore map sustain completely, right?
Yeah.
Expect some there's a base chance for connected maps to drop. It's a 30% base chance that is not shown anywhere, but you have that by default. And I could see that being removed or lowered. And probably the nodes getting nerfed down to 1% or 1.5% or something.
Yeah.
They probably don't want this to be sustainable forever. rushing maps is totally a viable strat, but it should come at a cost of, you know, burning maps. If you're literally increasing a map pool, if you run 100 coves and now you have 200 coves and you just, you know, ran 100 in 1 hour, that's not fair.
It's not fair. I mean, we'll see if they care. They might, you know, they might freak out. They might request it be nerfed. They might change it all. Who knows?
The best thing about it for me is that I can farm the red bosses without doing red influence maps. Because I just run to the boss and I get my X-arcs and I don't have to interact with the shitty red influence.
Yeah, I just augmented your tree a little bit, like when you posted. You could pick up a couple more of those duplicated nodes and then also pick up all of the stupid map drop things and then also pick up all the smuggler things for exactly all the points you have.
That's like exactly what I mean. This is like the bare bones what you want to pick.
It looks super goofy.
It does, but it's really, really strong.
If you were a layman to Path and you saw this, you would be like, this man's an idiot. This tree is... He's not picking up any of the notables.
Yeah, and then we are talking about nerfing it, right? And it being broken. So that's the beauty of Path, to be honest, for me. It's
there
like
you go.
those things pop up here and there, and they are cool.
I'll do it next week, and I'll swap my tree over if I can. I don't even have points. Maybe I do. We'll do it next week, and we'll see how profitable it is. I do have enough. I can make at least 60 on making. That's fine. All right, we got a couple more questions here. I'm trying to vet them as I go because most of these are just the words pee pee poo poo over and over again. Here, Legi, why don't you fill air while I look at questions?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's your podcast, so you know.
It's yours too.
You are in charge.
No, I'm not in charge of anything. Well, here's a common one we all get, which is, "Hello, Sir Lighty. I just started collecting uniques recently. Where should I begin?" It's I tend to just suggest things like expedition and heist. But really, my biggest suggestion is do whatever you enjoy for the first couple leagues. If you're doing this for a long-term project, there's so many base game uniques that you're just gonna get that you could just pretty much just enjoy Path and just interact with the league mechanic as much as you want and do all the new things. And most of them, like the base 60 to 70%, will just come as a byproduct of playing a lot. And then once you have all the base uniques, bar like things like Mage Blood and Squire, and you could start to worry about specific things. But yeah, I mean, Expedition
exactly
Heist are
like
really
that.
good, but I would just mosey around.
Just play the game, enjoy yourself, and don't really think about collecting uniques per se. Like your only goal should be collecting uniques.
Yep.
It should be just having fun, and then collection should be just a side thing mostly. And then most of as Lighty is saying, most of the uniques will just come by interacting with everything that PoE has to offer. Sometimes you'll drop something really cool, like I don't know, let's say a headhunter randomly from somewhere. You're gonna get it from ritual. If you're looking for ritual uniques, for example, it's mostly boils down to not getting burned out. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Just don't focus on doing specific things that you don't like. Just enjoy yourself and don't get burned out.
You don't have to even worry about that stuff until the the point in which we're at. Then it's like, oh, I gotta go do 2,000 alvas because I'm only missing one vial, and that's like the average chance for that one vial to drop. Like, that point comes so later on that you don't even have to worry about it. It should be more like just enjoying your character. So what I mean by that is like you're playing a build like, oh, I could use a Transcendence Jewel. Let me go do 30 alva temples. And as a byproduct of doing that, you'll probably hit other vials, which will be marked off your list. Like, so many things will come as byproducts of just working on your character. And you'll get those lucky surprises like Legi's saying. We've all had the thing where we've handed in like a stack deck or a void or a Jack in the Box and been like, holy shit, that's a badge, that's a headhunter. And like, those things do happen. And you'll have your own things happen.
The start of my vial this league, the Vial of Awakening that was missing for over a year, was freaking hilarious because I wasn't even trying to get it. Like, I just done.
There you go.
Then the thing was, I just wanted to meme on someone. Right, the guy just missed his 3 Animals Lightning Strikes. He bricked them all, and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna meme on you. I'm gonna double grab my own, and I bricked it as well.
Yep.
But I decided to kill the boss, and it dropped the vial randomly. So happy accident, which is
It happens.
Exactly what we're talking about.
There's a lot of happy accidents in Path, especially when you're collecting uniques, and basically, like I said, until you're at that last phase, just don't do it. But if the short answer would be, what's the best way to get the most uniques possible? I'd probably just say Gwen or Heist. Like, that's the unfun answer. The unfun answer is Expedition.
Expedition and div cards. Like, if you want to minimax fun out of a unique collection journey, just farm stack decks. And,
stack decks and Gwen.
Yep.
That's all you need in life. All right. I'm being PM'd a bunch. What is this?
I'm still so surprised how good this expansion is. I was, as always, so negative, but it's amazing. How shit the league is.
Yes. And he's back. We can stop talking shit about him. Okay. This is an interesting question. I'm really curious who the fuck this person is, but it just says, as a game dev, so I'm assuming that is Chris Wilson himself, I am curious about how you feel... Wait, hold on. This question is maybe English. As a game dev, I am curious how you feel about games that add little fun, so, in quotes, cosmetic-only touches based on your Steam ID, / whatever. Think, if Lighty created a character, it would occasionally have a light bulb go off in their head. Okay, so I know what you mean, kind of. Like, there are some games that pull information from your Steam ID, like your profile picture, and implement them into the game state. I mean, I just like little touches in games are nice in general. I don't really think if Path has any of them. Unfortunately, Path's, like, those are only really implemented in games where aesthetic is compromised, and the initial invention, when Path was basically implemented into the world, it had a unwavering aesthetic of dark fantasy. Now that is extremely compromised by the slew of MTXs that are like totally off theme. Like, I think that it would, if you asked me years ago, name 5 things that Path will never have, I would have said Battle Royale and Battle Pass would probably be on that list, right? And they're both there. So what else would be on that list? It was no longer an impossibility. And one of the bigger things is IP collaborations or crossovers. That if you ask me, oh, that'll never happen. But then I think, Lighty, there was a point in time where people were walking around with razor footprints in the ground. So it has happened. And it can happen again. And that would, to me, be like the ultimate offensive thing would be like to see, as I'm walking through, I see like Naruto fucking dabbing or something in town. Like, that's like that to me that seems crazy, but so did a Battle Pass, so did Battle Royale, so did Razer logo footprints on the ground. So
yeah, unfortunately, sometimes money speaks. So we never know what's gonna happen. But yeah, I really hope that we're not gonna get that anymore.
And never forget that over 87% of Path of Exile is owned by a Chinese conglomerate. Chris only owns 8.6% of Path of Exile.
What do you think about the Battle Pass, by the way? Did we touch on that?
I've done a whole video on it, but it's, I mean...
I think it's not a Battle Pass, first of all, but...
it's only bad for a variety of reasons, in which I mentioned in the video. Most notably, its impact on the economy was like... You to have it tied to in-game items is so ass backwards for a variety of reasons. Like, the items don't work with the replica variations is one. The arguments they're saying in the video and the description based off of like the limitations can only be constrained to them makes no sense, because you had things like the Aegis Aurora could be applied to any shield. They're only acquired through this league. You can't acquire them on standard. Like, it's just... It drove the Machinarium price to 15 Exalted in the first 30 minutes.
It was just people are stupid, but that's the other.
I mean, it's just a variety of bad. Like, I thought it was an April Fool's. I checked the date when it came out. I thought I got confused. It was weird. It was
Let's see
weird.
What they have coming up in a few days. When it's April 1st.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Battle Royale, right?
Maybe they just do nothing.
Well, too late.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying for their April Fool's thing, it's gonna be something tame that they're not gonna get flamed on. Like it's gonna be like, cast on cats or something like that again. Because I think they know a little bit that it's probably like the not best public reception to do something. That the thing is like, there's a lot of things they could do on April Fool's that half the people would be like, is this real or not? Like, can you please confirm this is actually April Fool's? Because I need to know. My sanity. This next question just says, should I see a doctor? Yes.
Yeah, you gotta find some burial chambers for it.
Yeah. Go farm those burial chambers. Would you rather have one ball sliced off or a 50% chance of both balls being sliced off? I think I'll flip the coin. I think I'm flipping the coin.
So, yeah, I would flip the coin as well.
Gotta.
Yeah, probably.
I don't want to lose a nut. Ridiculous question. A couple leagues ago, a lot of uniques were moved to the base game pool, including target farmable ones, such as Shaper Guardian uniques. What do you think about having target farmable uniques and the removal of them? Do you think this is a trade-focused change or solo self-found? I think it was...
It was a fuck-up.
It was only detrimental, yeah. And I don't know... I think they did it... I'd like to think they did it with the right intentions, but it only made it significantly more difficult. That being said, like, Gwen kind of saved it for some things, but...
So,
yeah.
My take on this is that the league uniques that they got rid of, the whole league restriction thing for stuff like Headhunter or what else do we have, like Valakos for Bloodlines, like that didn't make any sense. That was outdated as hell. It was so confusing too. Like how many people thought you could farm a Badge of the Brotherhood in Blighted maps?
Yeah.
Way too many. Like I'm glad they got rid of that and made them global drops. That was definitely a great change.
Yep.
And then they went one step further and also removed some of the boss uniques, like Simulacrum uniques, Guardian uniques, and put them into the global drop pool too, which I thought at the time was like a preparation for removing those maps from the game.
Yeah.
But now, like a year later, we still have those maps. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. So I really don't understand why they did that. I think the game just got worse for it.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we not just farm a Breastdome from the Minotaur eventually?
Yeah, I mean, I had to do that in Heist League where I just ended up farming 25 Minotaurs and got a Breastdome. But like I always knew that it was going to drop eventually, and there was like the route was there, and it was expending Horizons to do it, and it just made sense. But now it's
we already have so many global drops, especially since they added all of those league drops like Headhunter and Badge into the global drop pool, right? The global drop pool is already really good, and it makes sense magic finding. It makes sense doing the Archnemesis unique recipe because there's already a ton of good drops.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they also had to take out the few good drops from the Guardians and Conquerors and so on.
Well, to me, it really loses the identity of the fight because it's like a lot of these people, like they're all using their weapons and armor also. Like I see the Minotaurs wearing a Breastdome. I see Hydra's holding the Sliver Tongue. It's like, especially...
Makes zero sense to me why it doesn't drop that anymore.
Yeah, it's... They could just revert that change, or at the very least, just have both happen. Like have it in the global pool also, but it's quite rare. Then have it drop off the thing. So at least if there's a route, like I always like it when they have a route to some sort of deterministic route to success, like within the players. The option is on the player.
I felt very strongly about this change back in the day, but right now, to be honest, I don't really care that much anymore.
Yeah,
since maybe it was. Already quite a bit of time passed since.
You think that a lot of that's because of Gwen, though? Like, how many times have you gotten your stuff?
I would say so. Yeah, Gwen band-aids a lot of things with that, but yeah, I don't think it was really needed. So
the
weird change, but I don't feel as strong as I did before about it.
Final Q&A question kind of ties in with this, and it was: do you think it's worth to run Simulacrum if it can't go to wave 30? And one of those interesting things is like. So Simulacrum now goes to 30, and from my experience, I've always had at least one unique jewel drop when I do a full 30. But there has been times where I've gotten my first unique jewel to drop at like 26 and then 28, like for a second one. So if I ran even 25 waves of Simulacrum and I got no unique, I'd feel extremely sad. So if you can't do 30, can you sell it? I'd rather just say hold it until you can do it. But if you're in Trade League, I'm not sure the values, but yeah, it just feels bad that you get nothing. I mean, the best thing you get is probably the I-84.
I mean, you still get a lot of generic loot.
Yeah.
Like,
you get stuff, and also gem levels and levels, but...
I think it's oftentimes worth to just run your first or second Simulacrum in SSF at least. Like, even if you know you're not going to make it to 30, just clearing 20 waves is already, you know, a lot of reward that you can get right now.
Also, it's a good benchmark to see where you're at versus, like, where you need to be. I mean, there's a huge difference between 30 to 25, but at least it's like, okay, I could do 25 no problem, and 26 is, like, pretty hard. Now I know I should, like, double my damage and defenses, and I'll come back and I should be able to conquer it.
Yeah. I mean, it's always better to get a few rewards early than getting a lot of rewards in, like, many weeks from now, or maybe never. I don't know if you ever get there, you know?
I mean,
if it just rots in your stash, it doesn't help anyone.
To that point, it's kind of like what you're saying is, using your words for you, I guess, it's just like, would I rather have the difference in farming my build will have with this, 8 passive cluster for the next month versus not having it, and then getting a little bit more value or a lot more value even a month from now is probably way better with my build being able to function much more with the cluster, with the gear, with the whatever I got. So there'll always be another Simulacrum. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Don't sit on content.
Yes.
Don't sit on stuff to absolutely minimax it. Just run stuff on if you feel it's okay. So
except for synth maps. Don't run synth maps without the fucking nodes in.
Yeah,
in general, like in the past, maybe we were bottlenecked by not having content, and you want to really min-max it. But nowadays, you get infinite of everything. Like, there was a time where you were strained for sulfide, so you might be able to delve, and now you're like, I have so much sulfide I could delve for like a month straight, you know?
Yep.
That's pretty similar for all other content and juice like scarabs and stuff like that as well. You get so many more of everything nowadays. There's not much reason to ever hold anything.
Yeah, as long as you have, if it has respective nodes in the Atlas tree, as long as those are picked up, just go ham. I mean, there's always going to be more. There's very little that's like, you can't like hard lock your path account, so I wouldn't worry. So last thing I want to talk about briefly is just because we're rounding up the second month of League here, and it's a question that gets asked really often. It wasn't the Q&A this time; it's been on every Q&A always, and it's just the direct question is basically regarding burnout, but it's more than that. And the answer to burnout is always the same thing: it's just have goals, pace yourself. We've said it 1,000 times, but we've also talked about a little bit when it comes to collecting uniques this league. Just have fun, do what you want to do, make goals, pace yourself. The other question was, what other games are we playing? What other games are we doing? Not even just video games, if it's card games, miniatures, whatever. What else do we do game-wise when we're not playing Path, or to maybe take a break from Path?
For me, it changes every time. Like, when I take like a break from PoE for like a month or two, I just like start binging another game sometimes.
Yeah.
If I get into another game, like, remember a year ago when Ultimatum was really bad and I quit the league after like 2 weeks because it was so laggy for me. I just ended up playing like 2 months of Dota and got back into Dota for a while.
Yeah. Leggy?
For me, right now, I'm still playing PoE, so I'm not playing anything at the moment, but I've dabbled into stuff like Overwatch, played some MTG online, Magic Arena, like 2 years ago beforehand, but it's became kind of scatale, but I've been pretty happy with PoE overall. Yeah. But it's mostly like sometimes dabbling into Overwatch to shoot some kids.
Shoot some kids.
In game, obviously. Excuse me.
You're on so many lists.
Yep.
How many have you guys played?
Probably cut that.
No, there's no cutting. This is just I'm not editing shit. I've got enough editing in my life.
Oh no.
Have you played any Elden Ring? Either of you two?
No.
Or Souls games?
I haven't really played any of the Souls games. It's not really my kind.
Here.
Little tiny schmeat boys. I see. You gotta have big balls, huh? Big Souls balls.
I don't know.
You're both maidenless.
I never play any controller games really. I don't like
and you have to for that. I have played Souls games without controllers, and it is you're basically handicapped. So it's just you are correct. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of games you can play. There's a lot of good games coming out. A lot of games that have been coming out. Elden Ring, we had the Borderlands game. I still been playing Vampire Survivors every couple weeks. There's a new fucking patch.
Oh yeah, I've played
the
that.
best $3 game ever made, probably.
That game was really fun, yeah, for like 2 days.
I need to try it out.
They've added so much since it's been. I mean, every week is a major patch. There's new characters, new items, new levels.
Awesome. Really? That game is so good for PoE players, honestly. I feel like there's so much overlap.
That's the thing. It is just like you're playing like an aura stacking Spark build. It's just visual overload. So, yeah, but
it's awesome for
Dota's free. I think MTG Arena is free, right, Legi?
Wait, what did you say?
Just go back to shooting kids. Just forget it. And then Vampire Survivors is $3. So there's a couple games you can play that are pretty much on cheap. I mean, I say Dota's free. Every time you play Dota, a piece of your soul kind of gets crushed, but it's free on paper.
I was a big Dota fan back in the day, but I still got crushed.
I played a lot season 1. Game. I still have the hoodie they sent me for top 2,000 global in Dota when it first came out. Got a panda hoodie.
Oh, that's sick.
Nice. Yeah, that's about it. Nothing else. But yeah, I mean we've talked, pretty much covered anything else you guys would discuss. I think we've covered most things. I guess any other builds you guys are looking forward to playing or working on before the league is done? We still have over a month.
Yeah, I'm working on getting my motivation to go back to Strands right now. I haven't been playing for like a week or two now, just taking a bit of a break. But I do want to finish my replica baited breath grind. I'm like 3 out of 7 right now.
Yep. I haven't found one card yet. And I've done...
It's so rare, man.
Yeah, it's so
I've had days where
yesterday.
Gilded winged scarabs all day and didn't find anything.
Even if I get the whole set, I'm still not handing it in. I refuse. Until I run 5,000 replicas, then I don't think I've tried hard enough.
Let's see. Yeah, for me, it's like Metamorph. If I farm it, I'm okay. Like it's quite ethical. I'm not going to gamble it. I'm just going to farm it. But yeah, I ran I think 30 strands yesterday with like wing scarabs and didn't drop shit either. So
it is incredibly rare. Whether it's a good question, would it be more rare to farm out a full set on Strand or to do nothing but do replica grand heists? The only thing I would say there is we still don't know if there's a hidden... The thing is, we don't know if there's a hidden condition for it to even show up. So, one has a light at the end of the tunnel and one does not. That being said, the dark tunnel could be much shorter, but we don't know.
Also, running beyond maps is fun. Blowing up monsters, looting stuff is more fun.
I don't like beyond maps. That's actually the one thing I don't like about Fortune is the beyonds on it, because I don't like... I always have to look out for Mammoth. DD scares me.
Just have a rock belt equipped.
Too spooky.
Or wrong jewels.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other closing? Yeah.
For the build, I'm still looking to play one or build this league. I've said that at the start of the league that if I get a Mage Blood, and I got free 24 hours this league somehow.
Nice flex.
Just saying. I want to play Ice Nova build. I really want to play self-cast Ice Nova build and back to my roots.
You get an Astral Projector or no?
I don't know yet, but something Ice Nova...
That's an easy card to farm also.
Yeah, I mean, I have 3 of them already. It's
in
no
League?
Problem. Yeah, in League at the moment.
You have 3 Astral Projectors in League or 3 cards?
3 Astral Projectors.
How do you have 3 Astral Projectors in League?
I just hunt in the div cards.
Oh, from div card. Okay. I thought you dropped 3.
I'm not doing Metamorphs.
Okay.
No. I dropped 1 Metamorph unique somehow, but that's interesting.
I don't understand that mechanic.
Yeah, me neither.
I think I'm starting to get convinced my account is flagged or something.
It's likely. But I'm really looking forward to that build. I don't know what Ascendancy I'm going to play, if I'm going to play Omni or not, but I really, really want to go back to pressing Val Ice Nova. I'm feeling good.
That is good. That's actually, to that point, I just made the Poison Spark build like a couple of days ago, and I'm going to do that, like Low Life with Shavs and Aegis Aurora with like Glancing Blow, Clapblock, and all that stuff. And I kind of want to play that, but it does make me sad that I can't Valspark because it's an alt quality. Like, I do miss.
True.
I really don't understand why they'd made that check. I would definitely double corrupt it and just like roll the fucking dice if I could. But it feels kind of bad. Like, imagine playing. Like, I can't imagine playing Arc and not being able to use Val Arc. And Spark kind of feels similar to me, but it is what it is.
Unfortunate.
I do dislike that for builds like this. I have to get a alt quality Blood and Sand, and I've been done like 50 gem grind heists last week and a half, and it just feels kind of rough grinding for an alt quality gem. It takes
the ones with low weightings are so hard to get.
So it just even then you're just living on lapidary or whatever the regrading lenses. It feels bad, man. But Spark with that prod speed even feels even worse. Anything else from you guys?
No, not just want to enjoy the last couple of weeks of this great expansion before it might get some nerfs.
Yeah.
Play an Omni build before it's dead.
Yep, or maybe definitely. I like the idea of Perseverance next league, though. That's a spicy one. I put that on the wheel, but it's kind of a hard thing to force to get that built. Does Gwen even sell Vanguards? She must sell Vanguards.
Very rarely.
It's probably, yeah. Is it rarer than Elegant Shields? Because that's like 1 in 60 off of her.
Even more rare.
Jesus. All right, well, I'll probably just scour a chance that there's no other Vanguard. Yeah.
It's like 1 in 40 Ancient Orbs, so it's
time for magic finding. Kirac MF.
Kirac MF. Oh boy.
New maps, yeah. Well, not new, but they're called Kirac now.
Yeah.
Kirac's prefix.
Kirac's big day out.
Kirac now.
All right. Well,
maybe Sana's back next league. Who knows?
Oh, maybe. I mean, next league has to be a fucking banger of a league because there's going to be, if not Ascendancy and Atlas nerfs, I think there's going to be either or both, and it better feel like some huge fucking.
I expect no changes to the base, or just a few nerfs maybe to the Atlas, but most of the focus is going to be expansion, right? There's not going to be new content for the new bosses, I imagine.
No.
But who knows?
But it better be a crazy league. Also, I hope that this league mechanic has uniques in it, or item bases, because it's the second league in a row with no uniques for the league.
True.
And I don't want that to be... I mean, if that's a trend going forward, that's interesting. We only have new uniques on expansions than base game. I guess it's fine if they're all... I mean, if they release like 1 or 2 in their Squire rarity, I don't mind that as much. I still have not found a Squire yet. Gotta get on that somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure league uniques are gonna come back.
Hope so.
We just had like one league where they added these chase uniques, right? And then the league after they added the, like this league, they added new endgame expansion for a bunch of uniques. So they didn't really have to release any league uniques, but next league I'm sure they will.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it. I think we're good. So
okay. Wrap it up,
and wrap it out. Everyone can go home. Thanks for watching or listening. I don't have. I'm just gonna put both your icons above the screen. You're beautifully drawn. Must have been some master artist drew those.
Yeah, it's great.
Obviously.
Yeah, and then I will say that other people who stream have messaged me saying, "Hey, can you draw me a logo in MS Paint?" No problem. All right, that's it. All right, Legi, we have goodbye.
Bye bye.
I'm waving.
I wasn't Legi, but I'm waving anyway. Bye bye.
He wasn't Legi, but he is now.
I mean, people always think we are the same person in a way.
Are you
We
not?
do the same things.
I thought that one of you is just holding a puppet in one hand and a puppet in the other, and you're just like, talking with the. This is Legi, and then this is Manni over here. Is that how it works?
Oh, he got us.
I'm on to you.
Exposed.